the numbers that weren't on our last discussion, that there was probably about another $50,000 in oversight costs. Another issue is the Turtle Tunnel grant. There's about a qualification document that's about 23 pages long. Not that the length of it really matters, but there's a bunch of things that we don't qualify for. And Paul and Judy talked to the authority on the document. I can't remember what the agency was, but the agency that does the screening for it. And they said, oh yeah, towns of your size almost never qualify.
Oh, then why'd we get it?
So, you could qualify at the county level, but it wouldn't save us money. The county would pass through, but it would still end up costing us the same amount of money if we did it or the county did it through the grant.
Okay,
So ultimately, the issue is, just like the last time when we thought that the grant was dollar-wise made more sense, after Paul Ferraro explained the rest of it to us, because we have to have oversight over with an independent engineer. So Paul can't oversee the project. We have to hire somebody else, and he's got to be on site every day.
And we have to pay for that?
We have to pay for that.
Okay.
And we have to pay for additional engineering costs above and beyond the design that we already have. Right now, John Mance can work with the design that we already have. And then we have the qualification for the grant document. And some of the things in the qualification document talk about, you know, having a CFO staff of what, 3 to 5 people. We don't have a CFO, and we're not going to hire them.
Can't be
A certain,
I'm
you
not
know,
even one.
a certain, she'd probably be a lot happier, get home from work a lot earlier. And a certain inspection schedule on our vehicles that we don't do and are never going to do.
So I tell them lots of red tape.
Lots of red tape, lots of red
tape.
And
Because I already got an email about it.
Paul had told us that earlier on in the cycle, but we never quantified it. The numbers never got into these documents. So the last time you were here and we talked about it, well, you know, Paul said there's a lot more, but the dollars on here don't bear that out. And that's the last time when we said, I guess the grant makes sense. How do you turn away $180,000
Yeah, what would
and spend more money to do it yourself?
Right.
But Paul came and unpeeled the onion a little further, and there was a lot more money that wasn't on there.
Now so the plan, the final plan, I looked at them last night.
Oh, we have two options. One, and also Paul Ferraro has told us that we're gonna get a 6-month extension.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
that's
good.
great.
Oh, I didn't print out that email. Do you want me to print out that
Well,
email?
we can
Fine,
just,
good. How are
we
you,
can
Bernie?
just discuss.
It
Does it say
explains
much
the
more than that?
details, yeah.
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
I got bombarded at King's with, what's wrong with Hills Drive? Why did last night?
Oh, wow.
What happened with Hills Drive? Why did it take them so long? Did you
What?
talk to
Hills Drive?
Village Master Association?
I haven't had any conversations with them. I just know that it was terrible with potholes and.
Yeah, I know, at King's, they were giving me such a hard time last night. Unfortunately, I know all the cash registers there since I lived there.
I bet it wasn't a dedicated road, right? Be in a lot better shape.
Asked my friend Pam Waller why it took so long so I could have an answer for them.
They don't wanna have the town anywhere near it. They said because.
No, I mean why the Hills Village Master Association didn't take care of it sooner. I know it's their responsibility, not ours.
No, but I'm just saying is that they didn't even wanna broach any subject about us doing it.
No, I know. No, I'm not
They-
saying we
they-
should do it.
They wanna have their own people do it.
Yeah, I wondered if you had been in touch with them as to why it took them so long to
No,
do
no,
it. JK.
You got 10
So-
minutes afterwards? Okay.
K is the last one that we agreed on,
No, we haven't agreed on.
Okay.
J and K are the,
proposal.
what's on the table today. And hopefully,
Right glasses.
So Turtle Tunnel, we're definitely doing it ourselves. Okay.
that was a consensus from the last time.
Did we get an idea, is there I read these last night, any of these say how much it's gonna cost us?
Yeah,
We,
it's on there,
okay,
about 90.
90, it cost us.
You'll also notice that there's a change to the way we did this from the last time around,
I was a little
whereas Judy
confused.
would embed the grants that offset each category.
Excuse me,
Something.
thank you.
Within the park development, pavement management, yada yada in there, she's now put all those down at the bottom. So we
Oh,
have
I
a
see.
better feel for what each item actually costs. And then fund balance and old ordinances we're canceling just show us how we offset the total.
Okay.
So whereas, you would have building upgrades for Salt Barn, there was an ordinance that was being canceled to do that, to help
Okay,
with
and
that.
that's at the bottom.
So the sheet reads slightly different.
Okay, I was a little confused last night reading this. Oh, now we have the new system, coffee system. I see, yeah, that makes sense. So we got the extension, which means we're not doing the loan.
We got the extension, which means we can go either way.
Okay.
And that will be discussed with J and K, because there's a J option and a K option. We can go either way. But we weren't sure, as of when we last met, whether the 6-month extension was even available. Paul said
No,
he
it
thought
is.
it was an easy thing, and now he's right.
He said this is gonna be within a month.
There's another question, we'll get into this later, but he does not have an answer, as far as I know, about whether we can do it as a gravel road in phases.
Oh, okay.
He seems to think that would be
It's not helpful because it gives you the.
he's optimistic about it, but we do not have
Your
an
resolution's
answer.
email. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that
Yep.
update, Steve.
No, no problem.
Sorry, I thought I was gonna.
How was
be
your
here
trip
anyway.
to
Well, it's
Vermont?
good, except the Amtrak was delayed an hour
Going or coming back?
coming back. Going was only a half hour. I guess Vermont tracks are kind of old, which is why it only costs $90 round trip, but
That's pretty good.
that's why I
That's a
go
great
by
deal.
car.
I'll wait an extra hour.
I was gonna fly this way and make the meeting, and then I said $400, $90.
Well, there you go. You're being
It's not like we're
fiscally
being
prudent.
paid, and my daughter and I've been trying to see each other for 3 months. It's like crazy, but I think she lived in New
And
Zealand.
we saved
A plethora of.
we
back
saved you some
food.
extra budget work, so we did not wrap it up
Thank
the other
you.
night,
Yeah,
so.
I'm sorry I missed it. But anyway, I thought I was gonna hop on a train and get over here by 8, and the stupid Amtrak was delayed an hour, so. Oh, well.
Was it a good trip?
Yeah, it was great, yeah. I haven't seen her since September, so it was good to see her new little house.
No, it's just one. I
Oh,
thought
this
you
is-
could
oh,
read
this
it
is
to
all
everybody.
one?
It's just one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you could just read it.
Nope, I think there's two there.
Is it two? Oh, all right.
All right, a few minutes late, but not a problem. It is just after 9, it is March 1st, and this is our special Township Committee Budget Work Session number 6, March 1st, 2014. We are at 9 a.m., not
9
10 or 9:10, but that's okay. Let's call, we have a full Township Committee, the tape is running, and we call the meeting to order with the open public meeting act.
Yes, adequate notice of this special work session of the Township Committee was sent to the Burnsville News in Burnsville and posted here at the Township Building as of February 27th, 2014.
You all join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
To
to
the
the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have kind of a mixed bag this morning. This is a budget work session. It is a notice meeting, but we did put some stuff on here that we would have gotten to on Monday, and we still may have our meeting on Monday, but with the inclement weather in the forecast, there was some stuff that we absolutely could not wait if Monday got postponed, so you will see that on the agenda today. Having said that, this is we will do our first of our 2 rounds of public comment. There's a member of the public that wishes to make a comment. This is the time to be heard, at the beginning and the end of the meeting. Seeing none, we don't have subcommittee comments, and we're gonna get to a resolution here shortly, and this isn't the forum that I necessarily wanted to do it, but it's the first forum that we've all had together since the news, and I just wanna make sure everyone is aware that we'll have Pat Usry, our chief of police, is retiring very shortly. And although this isn't the speech I wanted to give, I did want to just acknowledge around the room and around the table the outstanding work that Pat has done, not just over the past 3.5 years as the chief of police, but for all his years in public service to Bedminster. And I just want to thank you, Pat, for everything you've done. You served honorably, and your leadership has been outstanding, and we thank you very much.
Well, I thank you guys for your support and for your service over the years, and you know, I'm melancholy to be leaving a 28-year career. I've been on this planet for 49 years, and 28 of them I've been carrying a badge and a gun. Having said that, I'm young enough and very excited about the prospect of starting a new career and the second phase of my life. So thank you.
Well, and we're very excited for you, but I hope to do this in a much more public forum or some other way, but I didn't want to let this pass, seeing you for the first time, without saying so.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll have some more on that with the resolutions. Permits and raffles. Let's go through our list of permits and raffles. A raffle license for Safe Hunterdon. That's on April 4th, 2014, 9 p.m. Fiddler's Elbow Country Club on off-premise merchandise. We have a raffle license for the Albrook School on May the 2nd, 2014, 6:30 to 11 p.m. at the Trump National Golf Club, on-premise merchandise. A raffle license for Commercial Real Estate Women Incorporated, New Jersey, on May the 7th, 2014, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Fiddler's Elbow Country Club, off-premise 50/50. Raffle license for the Commercial Real Estate Women Incorporated, New Jersey, on May 7th, 2014, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Fiddler's Elbow Country Club on-premise merchandise. Excuse me. A social affair permit for the Junior League of Morristown Incorporated, May 2nd, 2014, 11 a.m., 3 p.m. Fiddler's Elbow Country Club. And finally, a social affair permit for the Hemophilia Association of New Jersey on April 5th, 2014, 7 p.m. to midnight, and that's at the Fiddler's Elbow Country Club. Any comments or questions? And if not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Okay, we do have some resolutions, and the first of which pertains to what we were just talking about. Resolution 2014-035, Pat will be starting his terminal leave in 2 weeks on March the 14th, and we will have to be selecting a new police chief, but we have to have an interim in the meantime. And this resolution is taking our lieutenant, who's been our second in command for all of Pat's years, and moving him up to taking the role of chief, certainly at least through the selection of a new permanent chief.
One question on the whereas, it's to May 1. Is May 1 a deadline, or is
May 1 is,
That's my effective
His-
retirement
that's your
date.
effective date?
right, so we need to
But
pick a
we-
new person.
But is there a chance that we would still be in the interim phase beyond May 1? Or the act-
It could be.
It could be, we could extend it if we
Okay.
had to.
Okay.
It may not be, but it could be.
The goal is to have it done by the time Pat's last day is.
But does this limit us in any way?
Right. I
In
mean,
other words,
so
our-
we could just do
in
an
other words-
extension.
We could do an extension,
Okay.
if for some reason we weren't able to
Okay.
complete it.
So in the interim, you're on vacation.
Yes,
You're using vacation days.
yes.
Terminal leave. Any other comments or questions? If not, can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second.
This would be a roll call vote. Ms. Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Payne?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci? Aye. Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, interim chief.
Congratulations.
The shoes are pretty big, even though it's
Additional hats.
temporary, but thank you.
More work?
Join Debbie. That'll work.
Well, you know where the coffee
Lots of
maker
work.
is and everything else, so you're fine.
we'll try to behave so there's not much more work.
Let's move on to resolution 2014-036. This is authorizing emergency temporary appropriations in the current fund in the amount of $606,147. Now, even though the word emergency is in there, this is simply because we have gotten to a mile marker in the calendar year without having the budget passed, and we need this to continue to pay the bills. And so there is not an emergency associated with this, such as snow or whatever.
We start the year with 26.5% of the previous year's budget to start the year, and then as that funding is used, we appropriate then another allotment. So this is just the second allotment of that. So,
Any questions or comments? If not, can I take a motion?
So moved.
Second?
again, this is a roll call vote. Ms. Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Payne?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
2014-037, authorizing the current fund transfer of appropriation reserves to the total amount of $300.
This is remaining transfer from 2013. It's moving some 2013 money around to pay some remaining bills that.
It's actually Social Security for
Social-
overtime worked in December, late December, that we paid out in 2014, and we needed a little more money in the Social Security.
Any comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved?
Second?
Again, Ms. Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Payne?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
And resolution 2014-038, request for the extension and phasing of NJDOT local aid grant for the hike and bikeway southwest connector. And just before we,
If you wanted to wait and do this after, when you're sure that's what you want to do,
No.
We
I
could
mean,
defer.
we could have discussion.
we could discuss it right now.
No, I mean, this is just, this doesn't commit us to the phasing, right? I
No.
mean,
The
because
request.
this is just the request to confirm it, so.
And to catch Carolyn up, and we talked offline a little bit just before we convened here. We still have today a couple options for the phasing, whether we do some financing for it or we phase it. And those are on our capital options that we'll get to later. This is simply requesting the phasing and saying yes or no to this. Well, saying yes to this doesn't commit us to either of these programs necessarily, but it allows us to at least get the wheels in motion to ask for it formally.
Okay.
So I honestly don't think that it ties our hands in any way. I think it's just opening a door potentially.
Okay.
So any other comments and questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. This is just an all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Approval of the bill list. Do we have our little bill list sheet?
It's probably in the township committee room.
Okay, well, we can run that around shortly thereafter. Just, can I get a motion to approve the bill list pending the approval of individual bills?
So moved.
Second.
This will be a roll call vote again. Ms. Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Payne?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I mean, I looked at the list online you sent you, that had been in.
Right, but it has to be signed and it's in the township
Okay,
committee room.
okay,
I didn't bring it
okay.
in.
Yeah, I reviewed it, it looks to
Right.
be in order.
Yeah, you need to sign it too, so,
Yeah.
I just don't have my little thingy. If somebody could get it on the township committee room for me, we can pass it around. Thanks.
You have the actual vouchers?
They're in there too.
Oh, they are, okay.
Yeah, don't forget to sign your stuff.
Yeah.
Should be in-
Plenty of signing to be done.
They're in the,
Okay.
in the township committee room as well. Maybe you want just, if you're going in there, just grab the folders, bring them in. Pass that down to Debbie, she can sign it.
Thank you.
Service.
Thank you.
All right, now the fun, while we're here on a Saturday morning. Discussion of the budget. Now, I see on here we've got the capital review and then 2014 operating expense budget requests and some employee costs. Is this the order you want to proceed with it, or?
It's
I
up to
don't-
you.
Is the budget request something we haven't heard before?
No, it,
Or is all this
the
stuff?
budget, the operating budget, changes slightly depending on which capital plan we go with. Otherwise, the changes to the operating budget are listed,
Mhm.
and I think we need to just go over them and see which ones we're absolutely sure of.
Okay. Well,
And-
let's- we'll go in the order you've got. I think that
So-
makes sense now. So Judy has got us to capital plan K and capital plan J. And their variants on some of the things that we discussed the last time. And just for the readability of it, just to have you know, I think Larry had mentioned, and maybe John Mance had also mentioned, the idea of kind of reformatting this just slightly, so that what you see in the top 80% of it is simply the costs in each category without the budget offsets, the capital fund, or the
Shows you what
ordinances.
each budget really
Really
costs.
costs, and then down at the bottom, we have ordinances or capital fund surplus or items that we will use to offset the total. So there are kind of two plans here. And something that we didn't get to mention the last time, and it's on here, and because it has happened since the last time. Building upgrades, Califi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Califi,
Califi.
Who knows,
we don't know.
actually?
Doesn't matter, because they don't exist anymore.
Right,
No one's gonna complain about this.
Broke.
right.
Well, this is the brain, for lack of a better term, the computer system that runs our building, our lights, our HVAC system, and our opens and closes our doors,
Yes.
which are magnetic. And that has kind of gone on the fritz just over the past week. And the system, I guess, was purchased when the building was purchased.
Correct.
It was a system that was either new or old or some kind of special deal from the salesman, and although you see a cost here for $40,000, I'm being told that it was
That's very high.
purchased, but it was originally purchased for about $7,000 or $8,000. This is what I'm being told, and mostly because either it was a good deal, it was either new to the market, or maybe it was a leftover, you know, the last dog in the litter.
Fell out of the truck.
Yeah, I fell off the truck. I don't know. But my point is that it was the original cost for it was significantly less. Having said that, that's interesting, but they don't make it anymore. The company does not exist. Parts are not available. We have, we cannot just simply get a part to fix it.
Right, if I could give you a brief history, just so
Go ahead.
this didn't happen in the last week. Company by the name of Mako, we were identified as a company that could service the Califi system, and they have been doing so since about 2007. Around about 2009, the serviceman, who was now very familiar with the system, said, look, it's very difficult for me to get parts for the system, and at some point you're going to need to upgrade this system. I won't be able to fix it anymore. And he has put Band-Aids on the system since that time. About 2-3 weeks ago, we started having problems where we set up each for meetings for the doors to open and lights to go on and off and heat to come on. And about 2-3 weeks ago, we would set it and then we'd come to the meeting and it wouldn't be that way, or we'd leave the meeting and the doors would remain open and they wouldn't close and they wouldn't lock. And we've had problems with the control systems
Where the
for the
lights
heating
were still
system, and
on,
the
right?
lights are still on.
Right, I've seen that.
Anyway, so the latest thing was that the doors opened and we couldn't close them after the last meeting.
Mhm.
Now, then the other day they locked, and they don't have a locking mechanism to open them. So we've had to, open the doors manually every morning, and we're just worried that the HVA system is gonna go on and off intermittently and freeze the building. So the repairman came out again on Friday, looked at the system, went through everything, and he said, I can't fix it anymore. So the parts just aren't available, so. He gave us an estimate of, we're still waiting for the final written estimate, but was around, 33,000. So I put 40, but it's more around 33. You see two things listed there, John's Salt Barn for $38,899 and the Calfee system for $40,000. Speaking with John, he may want to revise that.
Yeah, that, we're gonna use that current ordinance, when it says salt barn, which is at 38, that's a current ordinance amount that we have for building facility stuff here at the Miller Lane facility. We're gonna use that to pay for the cost. That 40,000 that the other line item you see, is actually the new line that would be for facility stuff at Miller Lane, so that's what you'd have to finance for 2014. It's not actually both of those.
Okay,
Right.
we have, on K, we don't have the salt barn.
And
on
we
J,
need to
did.
clarify, that, just don't clarify it as salt barn, it's
whatever,
just
building.
facilities, it's Miller Lane facility.
Okay. But also, just some more things on the building system, the Khalifi system.
That's,
The
you need J.
part of what that also does is we have our
This is a-
heating system and our
This is-
air conditioning system is a
Just so we have.
geothermal, and it runs on variable speed pumps. Because my first question yesterday is, well, why don't we get deadbolt locks, use old-fashioned keys, put thermostats on the wall, and turn the lights on and off when we leave the room? I mean, for $33,000, do we need something that it's nice and convenient, but, and as I delved into the history of it, the energy savings is based upon running those variable speed pumps. And there's two pumps, and depending on what parts of the building need to be heated and how much they need to be heated, and after hours, it's a lot more than just, making it convenient so we don't have to turn on and off the thermostats, so.
Is this part of the
The building was
geothermal?
designed and set up as a very sophisticated building, and the controlling unit, which is the Calfee system, is what controls everything in the building. So all the lights, the parking lot lights, all your schedules for your occupied, unoccupied, lighting, heating, and all that is all part of that system. So it's a computerized system. So that's where your energy savings comes in, so that you're not leaving it on, somebody's turning on, somebody's unlocking the doors and stuff. So it's a very automatic system at this point.
Is the same thing with why you go into the room and the lights go on, or is that just a motion sensor? Is
That's
that
just a
tied-
motion sensor on the lights, so that the lights go off, so we don't leave them on all the time.
Is that tied into the system, any of that stuff?
Well, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
so that, for like the meeting room, yes, but not, for this room, no, it's not on that system. But, I mean, when you sit here for meetings and stuff, and I saw it the last time we were at the last budget meeting, is those hallway lights go on and off. And that's part of that Calfee system that doesn't know what it's doing at this point in time, that's why it's.
Well, this has been going on for a while, and Judy, and John, and that I've come by at some time here, on a weekend, and all the lights are.
You'll
all the
see
lights
certain
are-
lights on and
there's
certain
no
lights
reason for
off,
them to
and.
be on
That's
during the
always day. on at night, the whole office
Well,
area for 2 years.
I mean, I've seen the whole
it's
construction
been on.
zone, it's
Right.
on in,
Right.
in the middle of the day, on a weekend when there's nobody here.
Yes.
But I guess my point is, there's no doubt it's broke.
Yeah.
And we have lots of evidence that it's broke. The other thing is, some of the things that might seem more mundane, like being able to turn lights on and off, and having physical keys and deadbolts that secure the building. Well, our doors are magnetic, so the deadbolt, we would probably have to have might have to replace doors to
Right,
just
right.
make. My point is,
Yeah.
all the questions that you'll probably be asked about this, well, geez, $33,000 is nice, but, thermostats, keys, and turning lights on and off yourself costs a lot less than that. It is a lot more than that, and that the system, the full system, we don't have individual burners and heating units like you typically have in your house. So turn the thermostat up and it turns the burner on, turns the burner off. Because it's geothermal, because they're variable speed pumps, we've realized a significant savings in energy. Getting a new system will continue that. It may take a couple years to pay it off, but we will see significant savings other than just,
And
again.
also, each unit that's in the attic space that controls the HVAC, which is the geothermal, has one of these Calify controller units on it. We've had a couple of those fail. The last time we had it fail, he couldn't get a Calify part. He had to put a Honeywell part on it. So I mean, it's to the point where he can't get the parts for it.
So
And we've actually taken from one to put on another one, and we have one that's inoperable at this point in time upstairs, just for that reason.
So we're putting in what is essentially a next generation system, or
Right.
whatever the replacement system for is for,
Right.
it's a Honeywell, you said?
It's an
a
upgrade.
Honeywell system.
Right.
Plus the maintenance, if we were to go backward, the maintenance for all those individual things would eventually add up to be more than really, because this is the way life is going anyway.
No, the
So
good news is I
you're
don't
gonna be able
think-
to operate it from wherever you are, really.
Correct.
Yeah, I can log on at home on my computer, and I can, we're gonna be closed on Monday because it's snowing. I can log in and close the building.
You can do it by iPhone also.
Right, you can do it from your phone as well, so.
But my point is, it is not as simple as just going back to the manual methods.
We were probably.
It would have been,
We
We're
were
ahead of our
probably,
time.
we're probably due for an
Well,
upgrade anyway. I mean, it's
just-
like any other technology.
The reason we have these ordinances that we have in place, and the reason we're doing what we're doing with the capital ordinances, is we set aside money for projects. It's not dedicated for a specific project like the turtle tunnels or hike and bike. We just do facilities. We have a current ordinance. It's exactly what we have these ordinances for, so you're not funding additional money, other than now, we don't have any money left in that ordinance for this year. We have to fund a bank of
A
money.
new one.
Mhm.
Whether it's 40,000, you guys can make that determination, but
Mhm.
we have a current ordinance to cover the cost.
Okay.
So it's already funded, it's good.
but I just wanted you all to have the background on why and the position that we're in.
Thank you.
What's the schedule for moving forward on the replacement?
Because this project can be termed an emergency repair, and it's under the bid threshold, we can move forward with an emergency replacement without going out for quotes and everything. And to be honest, we would probably choose the company we've been working with all along because of their familiarity with the system as it is, so.
He's indicating a week's lead time for getting parts and getting it all set up, and probably within another week after that.
Yeah, so this
We can have it up
week
and
we'll have to
running.
continue to kind of
Right.
make things work the way they are, but.
But we're just replacing the brain, we're not replacing anything other than.
Right.
Any of the other hardware, no.
Okay.
It's just the hardware computer components that are associated with the HVAC, yes, anything that says Calify on it is getting replaced with a
Okay.
Honeywell type
With a
unit.
Honeywell or ADT or
Yeah,
something that's,
something
that
like that.
is
It's a control.
going to be around,
You say
Honeywell.
A name
you know,
brand, right.
And somebody,
New Jersey-based company.
Honeywell, right?
and the Calify system, even though that when we got it with the contract with this building, we were having a difficult time finding a company who would actually work on that system. There was really no vendor out there that would do maintenance on that type of a system. It was
S&P 500.
so.
All right, so as we look through J and K here, as we were discussing earlier in the last meeting, you know, the Turtle Tunnel project, now K should be updated with Paul's engineering. One has 15 and one has 25.
Yes, and John brought that to my
Just so you know.
attention. Actually, since we already did that resolution for 25,
25 is there.
it has to be 25, even though Paul said ultimately it will end up being more towards 15. We don't lose that money. If we have 10,000 extra, we can use it for something else, we can cancel it, we can reissue it for another project.
So J should be 25 as well?
Yes.
And what does that do to the bottom number? Just
It
add
changes it
by
$10,000
$10,000, right?
But you're taking out
Where's
that
that?
38 on the top, also on the building facilities, you're taking out that 38.
This
Well,
is
no,
a-
that's at the bottom, John, in the ordinances, so it still needs to stay there to be totaled in.
Ordinances.
So
We're
that's
not
on-
funding it, I'm taking it out in an ordinance at the bottom.
So
On
on
K or
J,
J?
On J,
J, the bottom line now is 323.
323, yes.
J or K?
J.
So J is the latest?
No, K is the latest, we didn't get to that yet.
Okay.
323, 644.
All right.
Okay, there's
And the
that.
biggest difference
See it.
you'll see on these two is, as we look at the hike and bike path. J, J is the one that includes a financing option.
Yes.
So you'll see you have five,
Mhm.
595
Mhm.
this year, and 50,000 for engineering, and then you'll see what's the down payment on
Mhm.
how many years of financing?
3.
3 year.
Which could be discussed and changed to a different year, but we had.
The down
picked-
payment would
Different
still be
term.
the same.
With down payment
Right.
of 13.5 is the same no
Mhm.
matter what, you'd
Mhm.
have to pay that the first year. But we had figured it on a 3-year, potentially 3-year payback.
Do we want to discuss the pros and cons of that element, or are we gonna?
I think that's probably the meat of what we're gonna talk about with this program, so yeah,
Okay.
with this
All right.
budget.
So for, just to clarify, for both J and K, the Turtle Tunnel project is the same project. It's
Yes.
Bedminster Township doing the work, period.
Right,
Right.
No
Because
grant.
we don't qualify for the grant.
Right.
So we just
We
took
were
that
awarded-
option out.
We were awarded, but we're not gonna hit the qualification requirements.
And it's
And
cheaper
I've
to
already
do it
made
ourselves.
And it's cheaper to do it
Right,
ourselves.
so that's,
and I've already made
Right.
John Park aware of that, that is
Yeah, that's-
likely
I got a call
the
from
direction.
unions. Let me ask you, for John Mance to do the work, now assuming this was a job that was gonna cost 180,000 in labor, basically, how is his department gonna do all that work and not hire somebody? I mean, how does he have the capacity to do that work when it seems like we're pretty much
because it's-
overburdened
because-
as it is?
because it's John Mance, because it's John Mance.
No, but really, I mean,
Well, I think one of the
That's
things
John.
that they brought up at the last meeting was that usually during the course of a year, John usually yearly, annually, does have a project, so to speak,
Mhm.
and that would be his
Last year it
project.
was the hike and
Vanderveer
bike
House.
near the
Uh-huh.
Cobus Vanderveer house,
Yeah.
right?
The year was the Hillside Avenue tear down,
What
right?
makes it very viable for us to do is that there's no really time frame. We can kind of do this as we need to.
Okay.
And we can do, throughout the year. You know, if it was a contracted amount, yes, you'd have a set time frame when we can do it, but we can kind of spread this out. We can put the turtle tunnels in, you know, and get that all set up, then we can do the fencing whenever we get a chance. So it works through whatever schedules I have and I make it work.
okay, now, was this something that you needed special expertise to do, a special environmental engineering firm, or are there specifications? Is somebody gonna oversee it and make sure that turtles are happy and, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, no, really.
Well, that was
You know,
part of the
I'm-
dilemma.
yeah, I'm being
That was
funny, but
part
I'm
of-
not
no,
really
that was
being
part of
funny.
the problem is that with the private contractor and with the grant, we were gonna have to have all this, you know, extra oversight and people there daily, and it was, it is just, that was just gonna increase the cost.
The design of the Turtle Tunnel was
It's already-
part of a DEP reviewed project. Paul designed it. It was
Oh,
submitted.
Paul designed it.
It was submitted to DEP. It was approved by DEP.
I see.
We're just gonna implement that design.
Right, so what John is going to do, John is going to buy the materials consistent with Paul's design, and he's going to install it.
Okay, so there wasn't a special environmental engineering firm that had to design this and oversee
No,
it?
they're turtle tunnels.
Because all
It's-
these, you're saying it like we all know what turtle tunnels are. Oh,
It's-
it's a road.
It's actually, it's a culvert, it's
Yeah,
drained,
right.
okay?
Yeah, I was at the
It's a
meeting.
concrete culvert. All
Uh-huh.
it does is has some grates on the top and then it has a dirt bottom. It'll have dirt in the bottom, that's all it is. So it's just like putting a pipe in across the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, what Larry's saying is this has already been vetted and approved by the DEP as being consistent with
So
the
the
goals,
design-
with the goals and everything.
Because all the requirements to oversee it that we're bypassing, are we also bypassing something, you know, that's going
We're
to
not
make?
No,
bypassing
no,
it
no,
because
that
we're
was-
not,
that
we're
was-
not,
no,
we're
no,
not
no,
qualified for the
this is-
grants, we're not bypassing
Well, I know we
anything.
can go through the county and get the grant, so the fact that we're not qualified doesn't mean we're not
Well,
qualified.
we don't know that we
Steve
can go,
explained
we
to
don't
me.
know that we can go through the county. We don't know that the county wants to pick this up. And the only thing we would be bypassing is the regulatory oversight, not on environmental terms, but for running a federal grant.
That the grant would require, and if you don't take the
That the
grant, you
grant
have
that
to-
comes with the
Right,
grant
so I'm
does
just
not,
making
does
sure
not,
that
does
that's
not
not
come with the
something-
bunnies, it doesn't come with the turtles, it doesn't come with
Yeah.
the salamanders, it doesn't come with
Right.
anything else. That's already been reviewed and approved by the DEP experts.
Okay,
Now it's a construction project.
okay.
So how do we manage the construction project? We manage the construction project here, where we can control the expenses, or do we run the construction project on this other end, where we have federal, essentially federal requirements, and all those requirements come with strings, and all those strings
Right.
come with expenses?
Yeah, I'm just making sure the strings aren't strings that, require us to do it in a certain way that is approved by the environmental experts.
No,
But
We've gone through we're
Okay.
approved by DEP, the project was approved by DEP, it was approved by the DEP expert Brian Zarate, who is the amphibian and turtle expert down there.
He'll still be on site doing.
Yeah, and we're
Doing
still
review.
subject to
And we're
DEP
still-
coming out.
Another way to look at this, Carolyn, is this is an instance where local, hands-on government can do it much more efficiently and timely
Right, right.
than big government
Yeah.
can. You know, so rather than having big government oversight, we're doing it on a local level, totally consistent with the goals of the program and the DEP requirements.
And our environmental commission would also, they'll still be in the loop, our open space people will still be in the loop, everybody's gonna be in the loop.
The Audubon and everybody, they're still gonna do their project.
Yeah, yeah,
And you
they'll still
told
do this-
John
they'll
Park
still do
about
the
it, what was
study.
his reaction?
Well, he was disappointed because he thought he was helping us. He thought, geez, I really was trying to get the grant, trying to keep the town from spending any more money than they absolutely needed to. But I reminded him, I said, this doesn't change the township's commitment to doing the project as we've agreed to in the past, meaning you're gonna get the tunnels, you know? It's not that we're not gonna deliver the tunnels as we've said we were going to. It just means that we will not be able to take advantage of the grant and that we will do it through our own means. But there will, at the end of the day, there will still be turtle tunnels. So.
Okay.
And by the way, just to take a little break in here, I've been reminded, looking at the agenda, we're not hitting any more police business. If you gents want to enjoy the rest of your Saturday,
Tell me twice.
unless you'd like to, you're more than welcome to stay. But I don't want to keep anybody here any longer than they have to. But I thank you, gentlemen, both for coming out.
Thank you.
And we haven't seen the last of Pat, so.
Not yet.
Better
Yeah,
not.
but it's getting closer.
We know where to find you. That's right.
We know where you live.
That's true.
We have a very good detective bureau.
Thanks, folks. Thank you very much.
Bye, have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. All right.
Well, thank you for that explanation, everybody.
And like I said, this doesn't come lightly. We've been back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on this, and like I said, we will ultimately fulfill our obligation, and the turtles will have a crossing. Now, the next thing on here is hike and bike path, and so yes, we had the resolution earlier talking about trying to phase it, and I think we can phase it, well, one of these two expects us to phase it, and the other also
Right,
gives us
Jay
the
is
opportunity to
funding
phase
it all this year, but we would still be able to phase it in as far as the implementation. Kay only puts 200,000 into the pot for it this year, and with the bulk of it being funded next year. Without borrowing. K is no borrowing, J is with borrowing.
Hey,
Well, now that, I'm
I
sorry.
can I just, John, maybe I should have asked this question earlier. When is Burnt Mills Park scheduled for field maintenance? You doing anything out there with the fields themselves?
No, any of the major stuff that we were doing last year was completed. We were doing not a renovation, but a slit seat and something to the lower field. We still need to do some work to that, but it's not gonna have any effect on those fields as far as playing. We're gonna shut anything down at this point in time, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, so the fields are gonna be in active use.
The
this,
fields are active use at this
okay.
point in time.
Sorry.
Oh, my only question was, okay, we have J and K, and J is fully funded the first year, $595 with a $270,000 short-term loan. And then K is the phase-in, okay, of $200,000 with no loan. I suppose if we're
Oh,
allowed to
wait,
phase
was it
in,
the opposite?
no,
J is no borrowing and K
no,
is borrowing?
K is borrowing.
K is borrowing and J is no borrowing,
No,
but you
J
said
is-
the opposite.
J is borrowing.
J is
Okay.
I
borrowing.
think Carolyn, you got it right there.
Bottom
Yeah,
is
yeah.
short-term
Yes.
loans.
J is borrowing, K is no borrowing.
All right.
J is a short-term loan.
Right, I see.
The, K is using the
K
surplus.
is no loan.
Okay,
Well,
thanks.
though, so is J. So my question is, now that we know we can do the phase-in, we can actually phase in any borrowing too, if we wanted to. Couldn't we? We'd want to take the whole loan in the
Well,
first year, right?
Right, if you don't wanna take, you can do the loan next year if you decide it's necessary next year.
Or we can take part of the loan this year.
Or we can wait and see
Yeah,
what
because
our
it goes-
budget ends up with and how much we have to raise taxes and then decide if we're gonna borrow or not, right?
Well, you know, on a philosophical level,
We're getting philosophical.
you know, I know we talked about essential versus non-essential. I think we talked about nice to have versus must
Right.
have,
This,
okay?
they all add together.
I
Yes.
think it's fair to say that if we were in this day and age, we would never attempt the hike and bike
Had to be
path.
higher than the full amount of the grant so that we could.
Years ago,
Oh,
when we were, you know, it was a different entirely economic environment, taxing
Right.
environment, we put this into place.
Right.
This train is already moving down and we're just trying to complete it.
Mhm.
But we would never have initiated this in this day and age, such an ambitious capital project,
Right,
okay? And while I'm not one to borrow money, and we've always kind of taken the fact that we're gonna fund stuff as we go, and we're gonna keep our debt as minimal. This is the type of project that you would borrow money on,
Right.
normally. It's not for day-to-day operational needs, you know, it's not like, you know, you're not tapping your home equity loan to buy groceries.
Right.
This is for the big, those things that are the bigger things,
right,
that the
and it's a
municipality
multi-year
faces.
project, so multi-year
And
funding
it's
makes
not a
sense.
huge number, so if we can keep taxes and
This
mitigate
number.
the impact on the taxpayer by borrowing money for this specific project, it's
Right.
not just we're borrowing money just to bring down the cost of government.
That's not additional.
Because we're already committed to this project, I'm perfectly comfortable with that,
Mhm.
cause it's not a lot of money to
No.
borrow.
Right,
Mhm.
I agree, no, we went.
But it
through
has a
this.
big impact on,
This budget,
on the budget,
The rate is amazing.
and the rate is amazing.
and we pay ourselves back, so there's no
I don't-
problem. It's just spreading out the cost is all it is, it's not really.
And it's a short-term loan.
So
If
it's
we
this.
wanted to make it a 5-year loan versus a
Becomes that.
3-year loan, we can discuss that. But I think that it's,
But then is that
to mitigate the
real
impact on the
expense
taxpayer,
versus-
I think we should.
Right, well, Bernie,
We
if
should borrow
we
the money.
borrow the
On the
money,
bottom.
we'll spread it
Okay.
out, we'll spread the
alright,
project
alright,
out because
that's-
we'll pay
that's
down
what
the
we meant.
debt.
Right.
And if we don't borrow the money and phase in the project and do it piece
Right.
by piece,
There's
we're
200
doing it over
for that,
several
and
years
then
also.
75
Either way, we're
going
sort
over
of,
from the
But what does the ultimate
maintenance
impact
is the
have?
other one. Or
Like,
pavement
I'm once
management.
again on how much,
Pavement
getting
management
within
is
our
already
goals
funded
that
in
we wanna
200
minimize
I can bike that we funded
the
this
amount
year.
raised by
It's gonna
taxes in
fund
2014.
next year's budget.
right, well, if we borrowed the money this year, then we would have to increase our debt service over the next several years.
Mm-hmm.
All right, whereas if we phase it in as a capital project, we won't affect our debt, but we'll have it in our capital budget instead of our debt service.
But,
the capital
but
budget will
then,
be bigger this year.
let's see, the latter, the actual number for the capital budget would go down because you're reducing it by the amount that you're borrowing.
Right.
So I know the idea is, pay it in cash as you go and take the payments out, but that's gonna have less of an impact on the total capital budget than is if you borrowed part of it this year or borrowed it part of it next
Right, well,
year.
you're either gonna fund it through your capital budget or you're
Mhm.
gonna fund it through your debt service, basically.
Mhm.
Either you're gonna have 90,000 a year on your capital budget or 90,000.
On your debt service.
On your debt service, or
Or you're
two
gonna
hundred and
phase it
seventy in a
in
lump sum.
on your capital.
And
But
which
the
one
debt
impacts
service
the
is the,
taxpayer the least.
the least impact on the taxpayer for 2014 at least is going to be having it in debt service and
Yes.
in the capital budget. That's my point.
Well, that's for 2014.
Right,
But even
then you-
but even so,
but 2015, 16, and 17 will then have an additional 90 to 95,000 depending on the interest rate.
But-
In that
In the
will put the
debt
budget
service.
up in the debt service.
Right.
if you're amortizing it over 3 years,
If that's what the schedule you choose.
or you're not gonna borrow the whole 270 or whatever is in the first year. You're gonna draw. You look at it as a construction loan or a draw, right? You're gonna draw it as you need it, and you're gonna pay for it as debt. But you're drawing in. We're not gonna need the whole 270 this year because we're phasing in the project. So why borrow the whole 270 this year? Part of it we could.
But
right?
you're not doing
We're not
anything this
gonna
year.
do that.
You wouldn't get it this year anyway.
Right.
You would,
Right.
you would budget for it, right? But
We'd
it
have to
wouldn't
put
start
down a
till
down payment.
Next year, the 13.
Right.
And so,
I'm just saying, don't borrow it if it's gonna sit there and not do anything with it.
And if
Right.
I'm looking here at capital plan K, and I'm looking at
Mhm.
the total capital, you know,
Right.
the total, so in 2014, we're up at 390, and then in 2015, we're at 373, we're staying relatively consistent, close to the 400,000 mark, so I think that's a good thing.
The
And
other
phasing
thing
that
too, we
in.
cannot award a contract unless we have all the money. So we can't say, well, we only need a third of the money. No, if we're gonna award a contract, even if we're gonna not pay for it all at once, we still have to, by
Have the
law,
money,
have
okay.
all the money in
Yeah.
our pocketbook.
But we could still have something between J and K, right?
You certainly could.
That would be L.
And that's just totally the finance.
Or as John
Which
Mann
is actually
suggested,
not between J and
Z.
K.
Well,
gonna be
we're
Z.
talking the financing mechanism,
K-
right?
Right.
Essentially, is all-
K.5.
that's all we're really
Not J and
talking,
a
right?
half.
Is how we're
J
gonna
and a half,
finance
yeah.
it. We have the phase in, so we know the timing of it, and now it's just a matter of, okay, how are you gonna finance it?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna finance it with surplus, you're gonna finance it with debt.
So if we're looking at the impact
pay
on
cash.
next year's budget, so that we can not make, down the road, make it worse for ourselves, for the taxpayers. Next year, do we have any big problem items coming up, like Robertson Road repaving?
Well-
Are we gonna have to pay for part of that? or-
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
not sure what
And
that's
we
gonna
don't
be.
know what those numbers are
Right,
yet.
so
The
we don't-
numbers on there are just estimates.
so maybe we wanna pay more this year and, yeah, okay, just something to consider.
I think we're almost, I think you have to finance part of it. And how much now that's another question.
Right.
But if you stayed with our goal, the workers, people's goal here,
Department heads.
that the capital budget stay somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000 as far as a funding mechanism, we're well within that
Mhm.
range at
Well,
this
that's,
point in time.
well, yeah, we have 390 on one and 323 on the other, so that's what I'm saying, there's somewhere in between there.
Well, but if I'm
The
looking at
323 is
K
a little low.
from 2014, 2015, I think you're
More consistent.
more consistent, and, I just think $400,000 is a good number for a township this size. You've got all sorts of projects to fund over the years, and you've got to put away for them all.
Hey Deb, is that a switch of position on this? I mean, this is something you and I had been discussing over the last, what seems like years on this issue.
What do you mean?
Doing the bond anticipation note,
Okay.
or doing the phasing and maintaining the capital budget
Mm-hmm.
at about flat for over the next couple of
Mhm.
years. And at one point, I thought that you were thinking that the ban was perhaps preferential. By doing the phasing, we do stabilize the capital budget, and I was wondering what your,
Well, I'm looking at this K, and I'm looking at it in, the numbers are there, and it just makes sense to me what I'm looking at,
okay,
okay?
thank you.
All right,
And,
Mhm.
Bernie, I would say the difference between the phasing, and once again, the phasing is dependent upon DOT confirming to Paul, and it sounds like we have the informal,
Right, approval.
the phasing is good, right? So, well, the 6-month extension is good, right? So automatically,
Good.
that's,
We can go in.
That's
next
great.
in
Yeah.
15.
and then, the email that he received from DOT says, the point-to-point connection,
Fine.
that's good too.
Right.
So that gives us, the flexibility to even have this discussion.
No, of course,
Right.
of course.
So with that, with the 6-month extension, the point-to-point and wrapping it up with the paving whenever, really, at that point,
Right.
whenever John can get to it, and whether it's, frankly, at that point, whether it's 15, 16, or 17, that's gonna be at, whenever John can actually implement that,
The paving.
the
portion.
final paving portion. So that gives us, frankly, I think, a lot more flexibility. And whether we are paying it with debt or a portion of debt, or we're doing the phasing approach, we're still phasing that in on the taxpayers. So, I know I've been sort of pushing along for this phasing approach. There's a little bit of cost savings with the interest and everything else, which is frankly, whether it's $5,000, even if we
Worst case would
Yeah,
be
worst
around
case.
4,000, yeah.
yeah.
For what? For the,
For the interest.
The interest
interest
rate,
would-
based on what,
Right.
we would
Yeah.
do an interest rate similar to what we have in our bands, whatever our
Right.
bands are. Our
Right.
bands would, as they are right now, for
50
$270,000
basis
would be about $4,000
$4,000, and
over,
I'm just gonna throw another 1,000 in, so the $5,000.
$5,000 over the 3 years.
It's not,
right.
it's not horrendous, but it seems like if we can actually do the phasing, we're essentially achieving the same without that $5,000 expense, and perhaps saving the bond anticipation notes for other stuff, such as paving. And, John.
Have we really
Sure.
used the bond anticipation notes for paving?
No,
No, we've used it for vehicle purchases.
not currently,
Right.
anyway.
But for this winter
Mhm.
that we're still in,
Mhm.
how bad is the pothole repair gonna be for spring and summer?
On your asphalt roads?
Or also we got the.
Well,
On
unpaved
our
roads,
asphalt,
yeah.
let's just stick with
Let's
asphalt.
start,
Just
let's start with
asphalt.
asphalt first. I think your asphalt roads actually are fair. I don't think we have the extent that some other things have seen. I mean, you guys saw, anybody who travels up down Hills Drive has seen that. Robertson Road probably is one of the, in a certain stretch is probably one of the worst that we have. But, I mean, it's sporadic. We can probably, manage what we have with our OE. With that, it's not a problem. The dirt roads, on the other hand, is my big headache right now.
And I wanna get to that shortly.
Okay, but that, but it's an ebb and flow right now. It's terrible, but as soon as I have some warm weather and it starts to get warm and it starts to dry out and everything starts fine and everything just relaxes, then, then we can get to it and everybody will be like traveling down roads at 60 miles an hour like they try to do. And everything will be fine. And they'll be complaining about dust because it'll be too dry.
And cars are
Um,
driving too fast on.
Right.
Yes.
But for right now, they're terrible.
Mhm.
So there's always that discussion that I've had with a couple residents. I know I have my chronic at least 5 that call me all the time. As I'm sure you all have your people that call you about other things. I have my chronic that call me about 5 about dirt roads and conditions of, and we try to manage that as much as possible. We're doing what we can with what we have currently. We're trying to manage everything what we can with the OE budget currently. Does not get us to a point where, the conditions of those dirt roads are going to improve any. We're just managing. We're not getting to that point. We've had that discussion a few years ago where we talked about, putting some money into capital for dirt roads, and then the auditor says, and it's not qualified as a capital improvement. I disagree. Mayor disagrees. But we're at that point. Even if we do that, I cannot guarantee anybody that if I put 6 or 8 inches of stone on the road, that you're not gonna have the same condition next year as you're having right now with just the way they are right now.
After the next gully washer of a storm and
And,
whatever.
and you have another torrential downpour, everything washes out, you're still gonna have those problems. It gives us a little bit more material to work with, but it is, these roads, these rural characteristic of Bedminster that everybody likes to have, is a very challenging experience. This has been one of those years that I have a terrible experience for me at this point in time.
Well,
Makes me
you've
sick.
not only had it over the winter, but last summer was no picnic either. We
No.
had,
Wow.
every
We've
2
had-
weeks you had a big storm, and every
Storm.
2 weeks you were
Had a washout.
regrading everything. It
So, I mean, we've gone from washouts to this to that, and we're trying to manage what we can.
Can I just a quick question, because, you know, I'm not a country girl, but over the years, would it be more efficient to pave those roads?
I would, no, I can't.
You can say, it. I'm asking it, theoretical question.
It would be to my benefit for you guys to pave those roads, okay?
They're
Because it'd
easier
be
to-
easier to
Right,
maintain.
so over the years, and
Easier
taking
to
into
maintain.
considering the cost of paving and any grants we might get, we wouldn't get grants, would we?
But you're,
You-
They're there
but,
for a specific
You
reason
might.
sometimes.
You might get
so-
grants.
Might get some grants.
Taking into consideration that, as well as the year-to-year maintenance of it, in the long run, would it save the town money if you
you're
pave
gonna,
those roads?
you're gonna spend a lot of money trying to get those roads up to a point where they can be paved
Oh.
anyway,
Okay.
okay? That's drainage, that's stone, it's everything, it's
Okay.
grading and all that, so the expense to the municipality for those roads to get them up to a condition where they can be paved and maintained that way is somewhat cost prohibitive at this point in time.
Okay. And we
Especially with
wouldn't
the
get grants
budgets
for
of,
that. Yeah.
you could potentially get something, but you're not gonna get, those DOT grants that we receive on an annual basis are somewhat awarded because, one, they look at, do they tie 2 towns together? And it's a road
Oh, I
that's
see.
between 2
Right.
towns,
Right,
so that there's that connector
right.
part of it. Then they look at some of the other things. So I mean, even on Robertson Drive, the reason we didn't get it last year was because it didn't meet some of the criteria. We put it in for a second time, assuming that we're going to probably get it this time.
Mhm.
That's why we're looking at this. So we've put a number of roads in multiple years, and usually if you don't get it the first year, you might get it the second year.
Mhm.
So
I would venture a guess too that the majority of residents on those roads would not wanna see them.
So I know, Larry, it really didn't
Yeah, I
answer your
figured, I
question.
knew that.
Yeah.
I know
But
that, I just wondered.
We're in a position right now where we're trying to manage what we currently have with what we have, what I
So,
have.
so
It's-
right now, you're not seeing a tremendous line, if you had to do a line item for pothole repair, winter 2013-14, you're not seeing a big line item there.
No, and I wouldn't indicate that we should probably up that number extensively. If anything,
Mhm.
I would say that if we were talking in our appropriations lines, if you're going to cut something in a line, you might take that, hand it to my budget for this year. We try to manage that, and if I don't use it, and I don't need it, then it just goes back into a surplus
Surplus,
line
right.
at some point in time.
Okay.
That's,
How you doing with cold patch? You able to find it?
I got it, and you've been taken care of.
Okay, because I was in the Little Pickles, and there was a guy there getting breakfast for the DOT guys, and I asked him about cold patch, and he goes, "It's very hard to find." So
It is very
good
hard.
job finding it.
What
Well,
is it?
it's-
I noticed we.
Cold patch.
Coal patch. It's a material that's it's pliable for the most part. It's got I don't know what the makeup of it is. It's not. It doesn't harden up as the normal hot material that we get in the summertime.
Okay.
But it's pliable and you can work with it in cold temperatures and stuff.
Oh, okay.
What I've been doing over the past few years, instead of the regular cold patch, which is a little bit cheaper material, it does not hold up as well. I use a very high performance cold patch, which is $100 a ton, $100+ a ton. So we try to use that as
Wow.
minimal as possible. So, and the supplier we went to get it the other day didn't have any. He was waiting for a stock to come in, because I guess they don't make it up, they truck it in, and there was a number of trucks looking for it. Everybody's looking for the same product. It's the same thing as salt, because the conditions are such at this point in time. So,
I think they have some in Vermont.
And I don't know what the DOT's gonna do this year for stuff, so.
Oh, God.
But before we come to a final resolution on a K, J or a K or a K.5, could we also take a look at how those things affect
Absolutely.
the total numbers here?
Mhm.
Because whereas I agree in principle with Deb and Larry maybe the capital budget, I'd like to see it more smooth, more consistent. Let's figure out how it affects the bottom line.
Okay, so what you wanna do, there was a sheet that says reaching the levy cap goal, and one at the top said, you'll see bolded capital budget J changes, and the second page has capital budget K changes.
So where does it say changes?
I have two Fs.
Oh, I see, okay, thank you.
It says capital budget F at the top, but then underneath bolded, right here.
Oh,
Under
oh,
changes.
You'll see one says capital budget J changes, one says capital budget K changes. So looking at
Okay,
the
okay,
first
okay.
one with the J changes,
Okay, I got it.
the two sheets are almost identical.
Third line down.
And mine
Yes,
says
sir.
K.
And
That
this
says
one-
K.
I have two Ks.
No.
No, I don't have two Ks?
Yeah, he does.
I do.
I thought I had two Js.
Does anybody have two J's?
I have one.
I'll trade a K for a J.
Go fish.
I'll raise you a J.
Wait a minute,
I'm
wait a
keeping, I'm
minute,
keeping my two Ks.
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
As long as you don't have three Ks.
Yes, there
I
you
think a
go.
pair of Ks.
You
beat
you
pair
need
of
a,
Js.
you need a J?
You should have issued glasses.
got a J?
when I got these.
Yes, I do.
I'll take you, Jay.
Oh,
Great job.
I'll call you Jay.
congratulations.
I'll call you
Okay.
Jay.
So, looking at your J changes,
Okay.
I was, the last time, why you see budget F at the top. Last time we really talked about this, there was the amount to be raised by taxes went up 5.16% with the capital budget F. And the appropriations, the way they were. And it was suggested that we try and reach the CPI goal of 1.9 as opposed to 5.16, or at least 2.0. So my challenge was to go back, find areas that we could adjust, and I did so. So looking at the J changes, using the J capital budget, it decreases the capital budget as it was in F by $47,534. So these are all decreases. So the amount to be raised by taxes with F, with capital budget F, was $7,403,299.
Just quick, I know this is just a minor issue, but we went from capital J,
Actually has,
capital plan J.
is
with the
10,000,
with
is
the
10,000, there's a difference.
So it should be 10,000.
So it should be 37,534, not 47.
Oh, that's a subtract.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, 37.
Judy, we had talked about
So this
just
total should be
briefly,
10 more.
you know, what the subtractions mean and what the, you know, the little things we took out. I just have a quick question under the senior citizen van.
Mm-hmm.
The $500, does that change the schedule at all for them, or?
That's a
It's
maintenance.
just-
That was a
okay.
maintenance item. We had just $500 set aside for any major
I just eat that up with my stuff.
repairs, and John
Okay.
funds it pretty much out of his budget anyway.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
So yeah, it doesn't change anything for them.
Like
So
in
the
your
bottom,
ride.
so there, we would just
I
take
think
10
you're
off the total
Right.
in either scenario.
I just wanna
Um,
make sure we're not, you know.
No.
So you can most of the changes on the list, I will say, really don't impact the budget very much, you know, and they're nickel and diming. Okay. If you go down to about 2/3 of the way down, you'll see an adjust police salary and wages per retirement of Patrick Ussery. So there's a savings of about $36,000 there. With Pat leaving and moving people around, new people not making the same as the previous people, we have some savings. Camp Bedminster salaries, it all depends on enrollment, how many counselors we need to hire. We've had a bit of a cushion there for a while, so Robin was comfortable giving that back. when we get down to the bottom with the legal services, I'm concerned about that. As far as cutting that, as John suggested, maybe if we don't feel we need it in legal services, and again, it's a crystal ball, do we really know? But maybe we take all or part of that money and throw it into John's OE budget, just so that he has some cushion. That's an option.
You have that legal services deduction because we anticipated possible legal costs because of the solar, and we're thinking that's not gonna happen.
Right.
We're
Is
thinking
that
that may be
discussion?
a
Yeah, I
little
remember
less
that
of a,
discussion. Right, that's gonna
Right,
be
we've,
pushed
we've,
back,
we've,
right.
maintained about $160,000, legal line for many years. We could take it down to 110 or 100, and
Okay.
probably, we only spent about 65,000.
Yeah, I remember that discussion. I was just wondering if
Right.
that was
However,
referring to
moving
that same
forward
discussion.
in subsequent years, that's gonna be an increase potentially, that they're
Right.
gonna have to find that money someplace else.
yes, if
Yep.
your total appropriations, if you drop it, just like the discussion of the capital budget, it's hard to then get it back.
Very hard.
And then the other thing I just want to point out, if you remember, Pat and Craig came to us and identified that they had about a $70,000 leftover money in their overtime budget in 2013. And they were proposing to take that money and fund a new patrol officer. Okay. And the money that would cost would come out of that overtime budget. It wouldn't add any new money to the budget. Pat and I sat down and came up with what the cost of a new officer, if we were gonna put them in July, would be. And figuring a half-year salary for a new officer is about $22,500, plus the money for the town's portion of their health care, and getting uniforms and gun for that officer, and the other costs, pension, or not pension, FICA and whatever, ends up being about $32,500. I would take that $32,500 from his overtime budget, so that's not gonna be new money that I would have to fund. That would still leave him, extra money, taking the $32,500 out to fund the officer, which now we need a replacement officer anyway, with Pat leaving. That still left a cushion in there, so we could easily take, you see 24,400, and then you see another 7. I just phased it in to meet the goal on the right, but, so total you've got 31,400. That still leaves about 6,000 in his overtime budget that would account for any, if there are raises this year, the hourly overtime rate would go up slightly. So it still gives him about a $6,000 cushion to account for any changes.
So just to be clear, so the way this is structured is, this presumes we're moving someone up so that we still have,
This
we
would,
still have a chief and a lieutenant.
right,
And we
Probably a
would,
new sergeant.
and we would have, a new sergeant?
promote of.
If one of the lieutenants,
Right.
if we move a lieutenant up,
We have to
if we move a sergeant up to lieutenant,
We have to-
assuming the structure of the
Right,
police
right.
department does not change.
Well, okay. And
That's
that,
the
and
assumption.
that's what I'm going with.
Keeping
That's
it
the
status
assumption.
quo.
Okay, so
This is
status
assuming
quo.
we don't hire someone new from outside to be chief.
Well, and that's where, yes.
Okay.
But there's also the second request, which is for an
Right.
additional officer.
For example, this is assuming we're not bringing in a 16th officer. This is just to maintain 15 officers as we have now, and funding that replacement officer. With Pat retiring, we need a new guy coming in at base pay.
Wait, you're saying that, but what if we replace, this is assuming we move someone up to be chief, right? We need a new officer. But if we just replace Pat with a new chief, then we don't need a new officer.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the state law require you hire from within?
If you have a qualified person from
candidate?
within,
Okay.
you have to go.
And we
I
went
didn't
through
know
this
that.
3.5 years ago, and believe me, Carolyn, I'm on board with your thoughts about it, because I go, well, why are we hamstrung? No, we had great
Oh, I
candidates
don't have
a
any
couple of
thoughts
years
about
ago.
it. I'm just trying
No,
to
no, no,
figure
no.
out
You
what.
asked, no, my point is, you're asking a very good question, and we asked it 3.5 years ago, right? That we had, we're fortunate, we had good candidates. I'm of the opinion we may have some good candidates this year as well. But my question was, you mean you can't go out and just find somebody else that,
Yeah,
from a different jurisdiction? And, no, we were told the way the state works things, you have to choose from within if you have qualified. If you
Okay.
don't have qualified, then you can start looking outside.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I wondered if we
Which
had to look out
I
from
don't-
out by
I don't
law.
agree with that, but
Okay.
again, we're in New Jersey.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
So we actually
Yeah,
save
sorts
money,
of crazy.
and we save money if we hire
Well,
from within.
right, but I guess what
Get
I'm
a new
going to
guy.
the next one
Cheaper guy.
is, so the first, I guess we go,
So we can,
So-
we
so
can fund the
one is-
replacement officer with 32.5 out of his.
right, so one is funding the replacement officer. But
Right.
then we have the new,
Which I'm cutting this in this proposal, but you have the funding there out of his overtime budget without adding anything to his budget at all. He could pay for.
so this is
for two.
adding so this line item means we're adding a new police
No,
officer?
no.
No, we're not.
It's not adding a new, there's gonna be a new person, but
Right.
we're
It
not
doesn't
adding
change
new-
the numbers.
We're not
Fine.
adding
This
a new
proposal
number of officers.
is funding the replacement officer
Right?
out of his overtime budget, not increasing his budget line at all for it.
We will save money because Pat leaves.
So-
And if the next guy moves up,
Right.
he still won't be at Pat's current salary.
Right.
It'll be a little lower.
I understand this line item. It's this one, 32.5 for new PO.
So knowing he has about $70,000 in his overtime budget that he identified is extra. Of that 70,000, I'm gonna take 32.5 of it and fund the replacement officer.
Okay, so
The guy at
that,
the
you know,
bottom.
and that's my issue is
So
that new
I don't
is
have to-
replacement.
Right, I
Yeah.
don't have to
Yeah,
add
right,
any
right.
money
It's
to his
not
budget.
additional.
We're not adding to the.
It's not additional.
We're not adding to the
Right.
number of
So
So we
officers.
have not
So the-
decided to.
The police
hire
salary
anybody.
line isn't increasing because of this. It's
Okay.
already in there.
Okay, so,
And you have enough money to fund a 16th officer if you choose to do that.
but that's not,
But
That's
that's
not
not
in
listed
okay,
here.
all right. I just want to be clear about the
So
replacement.
if we don't
versus new.
hire a 16th officer, we save even more money if we hire
Well,
from
well,
within.
Unless
well,
you have to pay
we're gonna be
overtime.
saving this 24 plus the $31,000 that's here. That's what we're saving, because we're cutting it out.
Okay,
If you leave it in, you have enough to, I would only leave it in if you're gonna hire the 16th officer.
right,
If you're not, we'll take it.
okay.
Now, this column, if you add all the numbers up with the 37 instead of 47 at the top, it comes to 219,700, or about $220,000.
Right.
Which, as you remember last time around, we said 1 point is about $70,000.
Mhm.
And this is consistent with that. Right?
Excuse me. Yes.
Because this goes from 5 to 2, so it's 220,000 represents about 3%. And then do you want to show what the
Okay,
K is?
So that's using J.
J.
And this, are we assuming?
I'm not suggesting that we necessarily take
Salary
all these
increases in
numbers.
here?
Yes,
Mhm.
Is
I
that-
didn't list them.
You didn't list them.
You can spank me.
No, but it's in the,
But it's built in there. It's built into these numbers?
it's
The numbers.
it's in these numbers.
The
These are-
operating budget
These are
numbers
subtractions from these.
Okay.
does have a raise for the employees in it. If you wish to discuss that, we can.
And
Now, what raise did you build into this?
I built in 2%, and for every 1/4%, a 2% raise for the non-union employees is about $40,000. And for every 1/4% that if you wanted to say, make it 1.75, that would save you $4,500.
So 1/4% is 4,500.
Yes, for the non-union.
How many employees total is the non-union just out of?
Full-time or part-time?
You've got a lot of fractions.
You don't have to.
here.
Just have it.
It looked, when I was looking through all these materials,
Non-union.
there's a bonus too built in, right?
No.
No.
No?
No,
When
that
we
was
said
in years when
bonus
we
on
didn't
it.
know, well, that was a year when.
That was a
past
long-
years.
that was
Okay,
past
so we
time.
don't
We-
have that anymore.
No,
Okay,
that
I
was in
remember
lieu
that.
of a pay
Of the
raise.
raise, right, okay.
That's separate.
That's just us. That's the five.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
But is, I mean, how does that go back? That's assumption 2%.
Yeah, that would be if our line went up 2%.
We're just excluding it.
We have 47 full-time employees, that includes the police. We have a number of part-time people that do not get benefits, mostly in the construction department, inspectors.
Non-union,
Non-union would be minus the PBA,
Minus
which they
15,
have 13 guys, so to
Oh, yeah, yeah,
47.
yeah. This is
34 employees.
project, been watching it for years, I think, yeah. So that's full-time and part-time?
Yes,
That's raised, okay.
it would be raises for everyone, and for every, like I said, 1/4% for the non-union is 4,500.
All right, now, if you look at the budget K changes, most of the line items are exactly the same.
They're exactly the same,
except,
right,
the capital budget
goes up.
goes up, which gives us less opportunity. You know, this is less effective.
Well, you have to see that
That's
we saved 37 in J. Now that 37 goes away, plus the budget went up. So it's, the difference, instead of going down 37,000, it's going up 28,000. So it impacts
So we have,
the number.
our capital between J and K is 323 to 390. So that's 66,000 something.
67, yeah, about 67,000. Is the delta between them.
That's 67
But
in addition.
that's not what you're comparing it to. It's being compared to the F budget.
Oh, well, I'm actually comparing these, no, I'm comparing the bottom line numbers.
to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because the F budget was 361, 178.
Those two numbers are about 77 off.
Yeah.
But, well, remember, there's a $10,000 difference here.
Yes,
So it's 71, should be 7163.
yeah, 7183.
They're up here.
Yeah,
We added,
I'm
Goes
looking
the
for
other
ch-
way.
we added the
It goes the
10.
other way?
We added the 10 for Paul, remember? The extra 10.
Right, right.
I thought we
So
took-
it's
I thought we took 10
320,
out.
640.
No, we had to add 10 for Paul, for the engineering. 'Cause
We
we had
added
50.
No,
we had-
no, for J, I thought we took 10
No,
out.
we added,
we added
we
10
added,
because we
it
had
was
already
15,
added-
because
'cause
we already,
did the
we already
ordinance
did the
for
ordinance for
25.
25.
So it's
It
going
may end
from-
up at 15, but we already put it in, so,
So Judy,
So it's
this,
10
this should
more.
be 320.
323, 644, yes. So my point is with the K, with using the K option, I'm short of getting to either the 1.9 goal or the 2.0 goal.
The K budget doesn't get us a 2% goal, it gets us to 3%.
But yeah,
And, as Deb will probably suggest, there are some grave concerns over fund balance replenishment.
Yeah.
yeah. If you remember last meeting or the meeting before, we were very proud of the fact that we, the $1.6 million that we normally use from surplus to fund the budget,
The following year.
the following year, we used 1.6. We were able, that we generated that 1.6 ourselves, which we didn't, which we haven't been able to do in a long time, and we had about $27,000 extra left over, which we haven't had anything left over for
We-
many years.
Yes, we've reversed a negative trend of eating into our fund balance, our reserve, that rainy day money that, and the auditors have been scolding us for years that we need to, we can't continue to eat away at
You have
that
to at
fund
least
balance.
generate what you're going to use, which is the
Right.
1.6, and we haven't been able to do that till this year.
So-
Right, although in capital budget K change sheet, you're still cutting the same appropriations, so you're still not going to save
No,
your current
my
fund
point is,
surplus.
both of these are, not to put words in your mouth, both of these, there was grave concern over our fund balance.
Yes.
On
Right.
either of these,
Right, in your operating budget,
correct,
yes.
correct.
Yes.
The K is worse, cause even with this, we're only getting to 3%, not 2.
You're talking percentages, correct. However, in both of these schedules, you're still talking about cutting all your appropriations, therefore, reducing the chance of rolling anything to surplus
Right.
in both of them. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm gonna,
Yes.
I'm gonna make a suggestion.
There's no wiggle money.
Right,
I'm gonna make a
there's
suggestion.
no rainy day money at all.
That, and I know what my aspiration was, and I know I was pretty clear about it, but I am very concerned about the fund balance going forward, and I'm not sure if that's the prudent thing to do over the long term. You know, we started out with the original budget was a 5% overall, but it met all the goals, the state law of the 2% with the exclusions. But I will say that I think most residents think 2% is 2%. When I look at the J option, if we took the last 3 lines, legal services, police overtime, and the police overtime excluding the new hire, you get about $80,000. It's about a point. I think it might be prudent for us to take that and put it back into appropriations and live with that. It still might degrade our fund balance, but it won't be as drastic as, in other words, it's a compromise between the 2 and the 5. My suggestion is we take that money, and we could put it into legal services, we could put it into literally any line that we
Right.
have.
Yes.
But I think we have an extraordinary circumstance in the town based upon the weather we've had over the winter. My suggestion is we go with the J, we put that money into John's line, that he has the opportunity, if we need it. And John, DPW, if anybody's been a hero through all of our budget cycles, it's always been DPW has found a way to do it cheaper. I would rather him have the cushion, I would rather him have the option. And if he doesn't have to spend it, I completely trust the fact that John will do it prudently. But if he needs it, by God, we've got it in his line. And if we have another event, we can get it done.
If
That's
if it makes you feel any differently, echoing the mayor's suggestion right now, also in your pile, there's a recent mayor's advisory that came from the state. The exceptions that the mayor suggested that, got us to the 5% that the taxpayer isn't gonna necessarily understand are for debt service, capital, budget changes, and healthcare. Okay. The state just came out and added a 4th one. Expenses related to snow removal is an additional emergency exception that we can take this year. And if you have to go to the taxpayer and say, why isn't it 2% and it's 3%, this is why.
Yeah.
I
This
like
is
the
why.
I like that suggestion because it really does, by giving it to John or putting it in that line item, it really does protect the services of the citizens. Because one of my concerns, as you know, is just, even though the numbers look good, I wanna make sure that we try to keep it comfortable as we can.
Yeah.
So that really does protect.
And we've still reduced significant, we're spending less than what the state allows us to spend. We have well exceeded the legal 2% cap. This body has always tried to go above and beyond that, or below that, whatever you wanna say.
If you look at your J packet, on the very last page, it's the operating budget total, and you'll see the number that says 9,650,087. That, if you look at the previous 2 columns, that's the 2013 budget. Our budget is $1,764 less than last year.
Again, we're spending
okay?
less.
And that incorporates a 16.5% increase on healthcare, pension,
Yep.
you know, our debt service, our capital
Energy,
budget,
salt,
everything, and we went down 1,700.
Judy, does that take into consideration your cuts and your
Yes.
your potential sheet is in these?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, now the mayor's suggesting that we put some of that back, which I agree.
And if it's put into your appropriation line rather than the capital line, I think that also protects us in out years. Because again, that appropriation has a cap to it as well. What it doesn't do for us, it doesn't smooth out the capital line as much as I think we'd like. And that is gonna present a challenge in future years. But, and with the financing, I still think we can phase. And if the phase opportunity happens, we can always pay things down early if we needed to. But,
Well,
I think it's a compromise.
Yeah, I wanna spend some more time with Kay and the phasing and looking at having the consistency in the capital budget.
Well, another thing in the difference between, I did not list any capital fund surplus in 2015, simply because I don't know what that number might be. I don't know what we'll have left over, you know, until we do the annual financial statement that we do in January every year. You know, so I can't predict what monies there would be to use to offset any 2015 or 2016 expenses.
Judy, can I ask you a question? And I don't understand this, and maybe it's in here, maybe it's not. On the hike and bike on K, okay, we have a project amount of, say, $595, and that doesn't include the engineering, correct?
Right.
All right. If we fund $200,000 this year for 2014, and your remaining is at 416 for 2015, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where does that 200,000 in accounting down here at the
Yes, at the bottom, yeah, the mayor just asked me
John,
that same question.
yeah, I was asking you that too. John, that money then goes down to this
See
line
the
down
bottom,
the following
where
year.
it says ordinance 2014 for pavement management plus hike and bike. We're
Oh,
doing
okay, I
a
didn't see-
200,000
yeah.
ordinance for the hike and bike and a $75,000 ordinance for
I didn't see
pavement
HP.
management, so
Okay.
that's 275 that we would be applying.
Now,
But then,
You
but
could
then,
drop
the,
that- you
but
could-
then the
that
remaining
200 is-
balance,
You could change that number.
yeah, you could change that to
That's
100.
just a suggestion.
but the
Right.
remaining balance on the 595 is only $141,000 if you apply the grant plus the $200,000 that we applied for this year. Just on the I'm not talking about the engineering, I'm just talking about the 595.
Yeah, only because 141 is what you have left that you.
So that's what we need, that's the 2015 funded amount to get the rest of the project
141,
done.
right. Mhm. That 200 number in K is a suggestion,
Mhm.
that
I
could
mean,
be
so
changed.
if you drop that to 130,
There's your $70,000.
there's your 70, you put that to 2015, it actually helps smooths out the 2015 capital budget.
Well, no,
Yeah,
that's the
good.
373.
Yeah, so that puts you right, 425.
16 is a healthy number.
Yeah, the 16 is that bump up.
Is very healthy.
Well, that's if we,
And a
Well,
lot
you're-
of the
you're
things
gonna
in
get to deal
16
with it.
are placeholders.
I might not,
That's
but
right.
you will.
Well, let's not leave that so healthy, maybe.
And 16 doesn't incorporate any road projects that we may
Well,
be
and
looking for
16,
grants
when,
on.
at that point, this is where I was getting with the issue of the phasing. That paving plan for the Burnt Mills extension, that can be phased out.
Well, yeah, we can
Remember,
decide not
I mean,
to pay.
and
But
I mean,
don't,
right, it may make sense to, we've talked about that project somehow being linked back to Robertson, if that gives us any preferential bidding opportunities.
Yes, putting the two together.
Okay.
John suggested that.
Oh.
That when you bid the project, you put the two projects
You got-
together so
you
that
got
you
the
get a better
asphalt,
price
you got
from the contractor.
Would the timing be difficult, or could, if
I don't
you
think
put them
so.
together, does the timing have to be all together, or would they put the appropriate time on it too?
No, I think you put it as part of the contract.
Yeah,
Part of the
you tell
contract
them
is
when you
what
want them
it
to
is.
do it. I mean,
Paving
you're
season's
just gonna get a
right.
better deal. Is there-
I mean, they may just incorporate, cost of material increases if they were to spike.
And unfortunately,
and
your
then-
unknown right now is what you're gonna get as far as that grant, if you're gonna get anything, if they're gonna approve it or not. I mean, it may not even go.
Right. But if it does, we've put aside the funds.
You still
so-
need to appropriate money for your infrastructure regardless, and that's what we've been trying to do over the past 5-6 years.
And there's a
could-
lot of towns that haven't been doing that, and they're paying the price now.
Well, and you will see that as soon as you drive in the local area. If you go to Bridgewater or Bernardsville or other towns, as John said before, our roads, our paved roads are in much better shape than our surrounding communities. And that is because of predecessors on this board to us. And
Mhm.
Bernie, you're the longest serving here as well, because every year, over the past 10 or 15 years, this committee has said, we are gonna put money away and we're gonna try and take care of a road at least every year, if not every other year, as best that we can.
Right.
And that, and John has delivered on that, and that's part of what Deb is telling us about keeping things smooth and making that payment.
And you can read what neighboring towns are having to do in the
Yeah.
paper
Yeah.
to
Bernardsville
reach
is-
this goal
Bernardsville is trying to bond $10 million so they can do all their roads
at
this
one
year.
time, which isn't.
And then they won't put in anything for a
Right.
while, and then in 10 or 12 years, they're gonna have another problem, and everything's gonna fail.
And that's just for paving. If they really
Yeah.
wanna do the drainage and everything else,
So-
it's up to 20 million supposedly.
I will caution that I'm not, what I see currently out there is what I see.
Oh, and when it thaws, it could be worse.
We could have some serious problems, and we could have some, and I'm starting to see some areas that are actually degrading, but, we can kind of manage through that. But I'd love to see more money in there, or we can just go out to or a co-op and get some paving done, absolutely, but, then I look at the budgetary concerns and side of it, and it's a balancing act of what we're trying to accomplish. What people have to understand is that, although I've been giving some credit for this, it's, what you see out there, what most people see are on state highways and
Yeah.
county and the private roadways. They don't necessarily see what's in the municipal portion of that.
Right.
We get outside this 206 corridor and we start going west, people have no idea what's on that side of town. So people just have to use caution that, they question somebody like Carolyn at the grocery store that, what's going on. It's not just us that has the problem, so.
No. The other thing is, I think on the financing end, if we didn't pull the trigger on the pavement portion of that, could we then also not use that, turn it into capital fund balance, and if we got shorted on Robertson Road, could we then use that additional money?
You
for
mean the
Robertson?
loan, turn the loan
Right.
into, I think if we're gonna cancel that loan, I've never done one of these types of
Yeah.
loans before, I think it has to go back to pay, I think you've gotta pay your debt service back.
Okay.
Yeah, once you've appropriated to become debt service, it then
Right.
becomes debt
Well,
service
that's-
and it can't go back to
But
council.
Well, I
that
guess
still,
there's
but that
nothing
still
wrong with
frees
that.
you up X amount of money.
That's nothing wrong
In
with
the
that.
debt service, right,
Right.
right, but
So-
I don't believe you can take that money and then use it
Okay,
for a different
but
purpose.
if you paid it off, you would then free up
And you could borrow for another project.
more.
So, what was the response that Paul received?
Here,
There's the email.
here it is.
So it was 6-month extension,
Mhm.
so it puts the award of hike and bike into
By June.
June.
He had a little schedule there somewhere, in the resolution. Look at the resolution.
Did you print
There
that
was,
out?
Yeah, it's in your packet. The resolution
Oh,
is
the
in,
act- oh, the
you
actual,
voted
oh,
on it.
no, I mean the actual schedule.
Yeah, it's in the resolution.
Yeah, here it is, hold on.
The schedule is in there, right.
April 2014, prepare and submit New Jersey DEP wetlands flood hazard permits. December
All right, there it
14,
is, okay, it's on
obtain,
the back.
I think there was a typo
obtain
there.
permits. January 15, prepare design plans.
Mhm.
Feb 15, bid project, phase one, 2015 received, March
We're talking
received
about
bids,
2016.
April award the project, May of 15 begin construction.
When was the award of the project?
Award
Yeah,
is
it was
April of
2015.
15.
April.
April
It was
15.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, okay, all right,
Yeah, that's the last
16,
one, in
okay.
16, mhm.
okay.
Well, that was to obtain the freshwater wetlands and flood hazard permits.
Well, no, that's,
No, no,
no,
that's
that's
still
part of the
part of it.
schedule.
Still part of
Well,
the
that's part of
project.
the schedule, that's
Right,
2014
okay.
work.
Okay.
We
So-
go from April to May of 15.
So we've got
Scheduled
for
receive
April,
permits, bid phase one project, and award the project, okay.
April 14 through December 14, we're talking about engineering and permitting.
Which you've already funded.
Which we've already funded,
Right,
correct?
we paid for already.
Well, not the permitting, you've only paid for engineering, you haven't paid for
For the
permit
engineering.
fees.
Yeah,
Right.
there's 50,000 in permits we have to fund.
Okay, then 2015, his design plans and specs. Is that part of what the engineering we've already approved?
The 25?
That
Yeah,
should be, yes.
that's
Okay.
already in there,
Alright, so
we're
that's
not
in there.
having any additional money.
Mhm.
Bid phase one, received bids, award project. So at the award of contract, award of project, we need to be,
We have to have the funding in place to award the contract.
okay, we fully funded, but at that time, we get the 75% of the grant.
Did he say 100%, didn't he?
He said because, the cost of the project in 2015 is way more than the amount of the grant, that we would get the full amount of the grant in 2015. Now, I don't know whether we get 75% up front and then 25% later, but it would all come to us in 2015.
But the unknown is the phasing portion that we've been talking about, if they're gonna approve that.
No, that's in this
No,
email
yeah,
that we
that's in
just
the
got,
email,
that
yeah.
said they will,
Yeah.
if we did this resolution, they would approve it.
The point-to-point, the
Yes.
stone
Point to
versus.
point.
Yes.
Yeah, stone
So,
first.
so this, the paving element is completely out of this.
It's
scope,
not, that's totally on us in
It's- it's
2016.
Or whenever.
Wherever.
Or whenever.
So, do we still have the obligation? No, I guess we, so we fully funded 100%. And that's what the.
Yeah, when they say begin
250
construction, that's the point to point, right?
Right.
The gravel,
That's the point to
Point to
point.
Yeah, point to point. We're
Yeah,
going from
yeah.
here to there, and it's gonna, there will be a completed path.
Right,
Done.
so when they say construction, that's not including the paving.
paving's on us.
And, John, just from a mechanical standpoint, so we have a gravel path. A year or two down the line, we decide, or we don't decide, but assume we decide to pave it. How much more is involved with paving after you put the gravel on there? And the reason I ask this is if we leave it for 2 or 3 years, we have some horrendous rain, we get big washouts.
You know,
How much
it's-
more then do you, and we don't know what'll happen, but what's the delta between
I
having
don't
to
think you're-
reconstruct?
I don't think you're gonna have the problems that you're thinking you're gonna have as far as washouts, because the stone path should be designed to incorporate the flow of water through it. That's the idea of these hike and bike things.
All right.
It allows water
pervious,
to
yeah.
permeate back into the soils,
Okay.
so that we don't have those issues. There's probably gonna be some regrading of the area, any low spots, high spots, to try to get it ready for asphalt and then pave it. And I think Paul's estimate that he did when we split this whole project out, incorporated in the next phase, the paving
Right,
portion
the
of
next
that,
phase.
was to do some additional
Okay.
stonework and stuff,
Good.
so.
And-
Yeah.
That's fine.
and I think we actually had pretty good, anecdotal experience with the Clucas Brook extension, because that was stoned for a long time.
Yeah, it was.
I remember going through that.
Right.
When it was stoned for an extended period of time, including some significant rain events.
And I don't think,
And
And would that be the kind of
accidents.
stone we'd have, the heavy stone?
no,
The
you're gonna,
large stone?
I think what Paul's, looking at is just like we did at the parking lot areas, it's
Yeah,
gonna
like
be
a
a
pea
heavier stone,
gravel.
and then a 3/8 stone on top, so
Yeah.
you can walk through it. Doesn't say that someone's gonna come up through that, but that seems to be the
Mhm.
direction we're going. Hopefully the soils will be a little bit better on this project than they are on the Clucas Brook project. It was a little wetter in those areas. I don't know what the conditions are through there, so, you know. And it also, that 416 that we're talking about, that first portion also gets you the 2 crossings, which is the 2
Right.
bridges that
Right.
they're
And
putting in.
that's the same deal. All right.
So,
Well, that was a big deal that we got that extension.
Yeah.
And we got
Oh,
that
yeah.
really made this a lot more palatable.
No,
Yeah.
they,
Give us a lot of options.
It doesn't, we can apply
for a paving grant,
for a paving grant for this same project
right?
Right.
through the next run.
And there are hike and bikeway grants available too.
So they, I mean, that's why they
and even
may
if we got a
award that
small
portion.
portion for
Small
that,
one.
it would be better than
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah,
Yep.
even 50,000 would be great.
And I would make that suggestion, we'd put that in
Yeah.
as soon as possible, whenever it's
Right.
possible.
Because
So, L.
Z,
I'm-
make it Z.
Don't you worry, we'll get to Z eventually.
That's her fear.
Um,
You have time tomorrow morning, right?
I know. In church, yeah.
It'll be a snow day.
It's gonna be a snow
You
day.
You'll be working.
It better be in church. I
Yeah.
would suggest a lot of praying with this.
This could be,
So what's the magic number?
well,
You need a calculator? Have
no,
at it.
no.
Here we got
I-
several.
I'm-
And the phone.
Well, to Steve's about the 3%, probably have to plug that into the impact on the taxpayer for, average.
I gotta run the numbers
Right.
again.
I mean, I think that it's a little more
I
visible.
think if we leave here today with giving me a goal of the percentage where you'd like to be,
Mhm.
and then let Debbie, John, and I put together what the numbers will be, and then maybe the mayor or Larry or subcommittee meet with us, just say, yeah, this is what we wanted, and then I can hand it off to the auditor to prepare for the state.
Sir,
Okay,
Yeah,
so
okay.
we begin construction in May.
15, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
What's our construction period?
I would,
In other words, you know what, I don't even care about the real construction. Payment of contractor begins, final payment is
60 days,
this entire clearing, getting the stone in.
I think so. I don't think it's more than 60, 90 days, I don't think it's more than that.
So
60 to 90
So
is
final
usually.
payment would not be carried, and final inspection and sign
July.
off.
July.
Jeez, alright, I was thinking maybe we can push that final to 2016, but, really?
But the point is, you have to have the money in your hand before you.
But-
award.
No, I know you need to have it in hand.
That's assuming that the contractor's gonna get, the bid will go out, you'll get a bid date. As soon as they sign the contract, they have a certain amount of time that
Mhm.
they have to start this project. And then there's their lead time to getting the project underway. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they get the
a
notice
month
to
or so.
proceed. Normally, it's 30
10.
days to get going.
Once they have a notice to proceed, it's 10 days that
10 days that they-
need to start the project.
So we're
And then
talking,
the construction starts.
so we're talking a mile, this is roughly a mile, 1.1, 0.9, somewhere in that
Yeah.
area. Clearing, excavation, and before that, surveying or whatever line work you're gonna.
Yeah, I just,
But Paul's
and
office
not,
looks
not
like that, yeah.
remembering, I forgot that we had two structures in there, they got the structures, so, I mean, it may be a little bit more than that, 120 days, 4
Mhm.
months, whatever, but it's not a very big process at this point in time.
That's interesting.
However, like we have to have all the money up front before we sign a contract, so
Okay.
the money has to be there in place.
So the money that we would have to have up front is the 416
Yes.
minus the grants. The real money, so the 416,
Mhm.
right,
Yep.
And then hopefully the
Times
weather
253.
cooperates.
416, 250.
163,000.
So we need to come up with 163 grand by
So do we
2015.
wanna still fund $200,000 this year?
Yeah, that's something that the 200, I think, might be a little on the
So
high
do we
side.
wanna do 175 or something?
That would help.
I,
Mm-hmm.
or 100, 130 and then 60 or 30 and 15.
And understanding that the vehicle replacement program for emergency services, it's plugged in just at a, you know, 75 this year, 100 next year. You know, those are just numbers.
And those are just constant accruals.
Right.
Yep.
And we, you know, have the ability to change some of them if need be.
But
Or switch it to paving or something else.
Right.
Can I ask, Debbie, can I ask a question? This is getting off a little bit. When we exceed the 2% using one of the exceptions, and now there's another exception added, okay? Is that just a big bucket, or do we have to specifically identify that what we're exceeding because health insurance was
Well,
was
Judy
this,
puts together
or-
a tax levy workbook,
Right.
and it's all spelled out in that.
There's a levy cap workbook is called, provided by the state.
Right.
That I put together in the auditor reviews that takes the amount to be raised by taxes in 2013, calculates 2%, and tells you what your amount to be raised by taxes can be for 2014, right?
Okay.
And the difference, and that's all you can raise your budget. But
Budget or the
then,
amount to raise
then
by
in this
tax?
column
Amount
over
to be
here,
raised. Amount to
they
be
said,
raised.
now, what's the difference in your capital budget? What's the difference in your debt service? What's the difference in your health care? Okay, those numbers can be added into that number, and and the workbook adds it in. I didn't provide that to you today because,
So
you know,
that's a
every number
gross
you change.
That's a gross number by the calculation. And let's just say it's another $200,000.
And at
okay?
my last calculation running through the program, we were at least $250,000 under
What
the
we
levy
could-
of what we could fund.
So that's the levy cap.
The levy, there's an appropriations
Okay,
cap,
and then there's a levy
and there's
cap.
a levy cap. And both are 2%. But the levy cap has these exceptions.
Alright, so you you don't have to specifically identify in our case anything.
It
that
gives you
unique
allowances,
to
and
us.
if you can
It's
use
not
them or
unique
you
to
don't
us,
have,
it's just
you
across
can use
the
them or
board.
not.
And we're
Across
not,
the
and we're
board,
not
yeah.
using, I don't believe we're using Cap Bank.
No.
So that's another thing. A couple of years ago, we had to use Cap Bank.
Mhm.
We had bank cap by being well under the cap in
Mhm.
Every
in
year,
prior
and you'll
years.
see it this year, we do an ordinance that allows us to set aside any of that levy cap bank that we didn't use, that we're not gonna use this year. We put it aside for, you could carry it for 3 years, is it 3 years we carry it?
Yeah, I believe so.
But
3
we're
years
not-
we can carry it for.
We're not using, even under my proposal, we're not using
No.
it this year, and we're not getting close to it, so.
But we have to use it in the final year, though. There is a year you have to, it drops off if you don't use it.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
have
Not
to use
every
it
need to
in
use it.
2015 or 2016.
Or you
right?
lose it.
So,
Many exceptions.
so even though it's not on here, it's kind of in the back there.
Yes.
It's the ace in the hole, so to speak. By the way, we probably, if we continue what we're doing with the appropriations, with the capital funding, with building the surplus, we should be able to have whatever accumulated cap bank to use in a subsequent year, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But there's
That's
so
good to
many
know.
exceptions. Hopefully, we'll never have to use that, because that would mean we're raising the budget, the taxes by a lot.
No, it's from, that's a reward for us being good.
Right, I know,
This-
but we don't wanna ever have to raise the
this
taxes enough to have to
and
worry
But
about
on
that.
occasion, we have had to use that cap bank
So we-
because, for an emergency.
We already have it though.
Yes.
We've already,
Right.
that's your reward for doing
It's-
good.
it's-
This is
in
also
our
expenditure.
savings
That's
account.
expenditure.
Yeah, we're,
So
and
the
that's
exceptions
from
to
last year.
That's from last year.
Essentially,
So
that's
that's
from
a
last
zero.
year. Yeah.
That's it really is.
There are towns that have to go out and do, request an extension of that levy cap bank to raise it. They go to the voters and ask to raise that.
Mhm.
We've never had to do that, but some towns down the shore especially are really in a mess.
Yeah.
They can go out and get emergency financing too, can't they? I
Yes.
mean, you know, in fact.
But it's such a process that
Mhm.
it's really thrown a wrench into the works.
You know, one of the things that was mentioned here was we wanna go line by line by line by line
Mhm.
and determine if we're being prudent with the taxpayers' money. I think we are doing that. We are absolutely doing that.
Well, I mean,
it's a tough-
you've spent a
Several
lot of time on
times.
capital projects and capital items, but the appropriation sides, you know, Judy's cut, you guys haven't spent a lot of time on the appropriations, and I'm assuming that you're trusting what she's telling you is the good numbers. And we only went through that document once that I can remember.
Yep, that's
Correct.
true.
It's in your pile.
I've
And I
gone
don't-
through it,
I
I've
don't-
gone through it several times, to understand it and to, we did go through it
We went, we have not done it to the extent that we've done the capital. You're right. We did, I think, 2 passes through it. The first time was very cursory, the first budget meeting. But the only one we.
Well, the changes are pretty easy to identify in the far right-hand column of any changes, up or
Right.
down, mostly
Are there
down.
areas you're conservative?
No, I
Okay.
just wanna make sure that, the appropriations is something that the voters look at a little bit more, is, why can't, we spending money on this or this person or this person, so.
I mean, look at all the time we spend here, and of course, we understand it, but, the average taxpayer is not gonna get even
As you said,
near
the
that.
average-
Well, here,
Yeah.
let's, okay.
What are you on?
Which one are you looking at,
Are you at
K?
K or J?
I'm at K, but the operating budget really should be the same, right? K and J?
The only thing that changes between K and J is the capital
K.
number.
Right, so let's,
Yeah.
Payroll alone.
One says K.
so, unless they both say K.
Also, last year, we really went through this and tightened it up, remember? And that's we're sort of
Right,
just
and we did that. One of the
continuing
things I
that,
think
yeah.
we haven't hit upon is, I know that there's been some discussions about the energy expenses. And, is
We haven't changed that budget
The what, 31?
from this year or from last year?
from last year, really, that much. Well, no, I take it back.
No, we did.
Yes, we did,
Little bit.
15,000 this year.
Yeah.
We didn't last year.
We didn't last year because we had trouble
was-
knowing
trouble-
when the solar
System
panels
was
would
coming up.
come up, and they ended up coming
If
up
you
a
look
lot
at
later
page
than
4,
when it happened.
right in the middle, you'll see electricity. Last year was 45, we only spent 21. This year we made it 30. So
Right,
that's
but,
saving
but
15.
right, I know it's a savings, but presumably, at 21, when did the system go live, for real?
Not until
Not,
late
not
summer.
until.
The end of the
Because
summer.
they turned it off.
But then it got
And
turned
the
off, so,
End of 2013, the fall of 2013 is when it went
but
away.
it was down for a while.
Right.
And then it's down again now because of the snow.
So should that number be even lower than 30?
It could be.
But
I
the-
was being very cautious.
But we also have guarantees, right? Don't we have a guarantee from the?
Yeah.
I don't know what that document is, so.
I don't have that here.
look-
Provided the system is putting
But
it out.
but also, just to be fair, and we can, squeeze the orange here on every line, but the other problem is, we also build into this, rightly or wrongly, some money that we're gonna use for the fund balance for the following year.
Correct.
Yes.
So, to
Correct.
torture ourselves with every line on here
That was my
is,
That's my point.
is an
Okay.
exercise that isn't necessarily gonna produce what we think it is.
Right, and by the way, I don't disagree, and in fact, it's not that I don't disagree, I agree fully in having that fund balance as healthy as it can be.
Right.
And maybe the trade is to realistic line items, but making sure that we hit the target that Deb recommends for the fund balance.
I
So
think it makes
fun-
everybody
so-
more comfortable.
Right, so funding the fund balance as a real item.
Yeah, I can't
I agree.
disagree
Yeah,
with that.
whether
It'd be almost nice to have a line that said fund balance.
Well,
Yeah.
Or reserve.
and if you wanna
Reserve.
do
Yeah,
that,
you
what
know,
we
reserve.
call
So
it is the special projects line.
I thought we did that last year,
The special projects line,
Yeah.
which is on
doing it more.
page, right there, on page 4, above electricity, you'll see, last year was 140, this year it's 100. Special projects, other expenses. It's, line 4 on page 4.
Right, so that 40 that's no longer there is 40 that won't go
Right,
to
I
surplus.
took 40,000 out,
And we generated 27 this year,
That's
Right.
all,
so.
right. And that's unaudited, that's probably gonna go down a bit. So we basically just broke even with the budget that we had last year. So anything you're proposing to cut,
the $220,000 that we took out.
right,
And I
that's where it's coming from.
questioned Deb last week on, we have the 2013 reserves, which is the appropriation portion It just stays in reserve for 2013, pays for any bills that we don't know about. And at the end of that, 2000 and.
At the end of 14,
It'll
2013
move to 15.
rolls to surplus.
Yeah, we just
Right.
rolled
Right.
2012.
So what number did we roll from 2012?
I think it was 411,000, which got us up to that $1.6 million
Correct.
replenishment. So anything we cut,
Right, so that's what I'm saying, is now we're going down from what our appropriations were last year, we're taking them down just a little bit, which could hurt us down the road.
All the extra costs for the snow plowing and the road potholes and all that, I mean, we must be above what we allowed.
No.
No, we're not?
John, my last look, it looked like we had spent 64,000.
See, there's a little smirky eye there at the end.
It's not.
Woo-hoo.
64,000 in snow. Okay, we've spent about 64,000 in snow so far this year. Our
How much?
proposed budget, 64, our proposed budget for snow is 55. Okay, we tapped into our snow trust, that's
Right.
why.
And that's the other thing we have to think about, is that I forget what that document's called that we're supposed to meet every year, but you're supposed to have
The
3
checklist.
years, your checklist,
You're supposed to have 3
3
years.
years of a snow reserve account.
Your
which is
average, your average
Right.
of the past 3 years snow removal in a trust account, which we did, is about $50,000, and we're depleting it.
Well, that's
We have
good.
to deplete it.
Because,
Right, because now we
It'd
have a
be
bad year,
gone.
and that's exactly the reason that thing is there. So now we've depleted that, we have to start building that back up at some point in time.
Right.
So this money that you wanna put into John's account, the 74,000,
Right.
that goes into, where exactly does that go?
My point
could
with
be
that
anywhere.
is that
Anywhere,
it's kinda, could eventually go anywhere. But as we look at this list of line items, out of the appropriations that Judy has said, we can take a little here, a little there. 220,000. I will agree, I think maybe scraping a little bit too close. And as a compromise, I think I would be willing to go back about 74, to put back in. That still may put us in a
because
deficit.
we may need to use it,
We may
and that
still
may
put
not
it in
help at
deficit.
all.
Yeah, so I'm
But
gonna put
I
that
think-
in John's line.
But we could put it in special projects, we could put it in literally any line we want. I think the right place for it is in John's line, because if we think there's going to be any place
That's
that may
likely,
spike,
that's likely where it's gonna go.
that's gonna spike, I'd rather put it in there to begin with.
Right, because
Not
if we need it
gonna-
before November, we can't do a
Right.
transfer from another
Right.
line until November, so
Right.
that would probably be the best
It's
decision.
justified to be in John's line.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And what we'd probably do is take a portion of that 70, whatever number you come up with, put it into the snow line item,
Mhm.
which will ultimately go to the trust account.
If we
at
decide
some-
to do that,
if
but
we
again, if we're gonna
transfer
put
If
it in
it's
snow
not used.
If
trust,
it's
we're
not
not
used.
putting it
It
in
goes into the
surplus.
trust account for a future year, which is nice.
Right.
Right,
What
but which
Deb
means
just
though,
said-
then it's not gonna go into surplus, so
Mhm.
that, that's your choice. Throw it to surplus, throw it to snow trust, or maybe
Both
spend
need
it,
it.
and nobody gets it.
Cause it's kinda winter, it must be, well, it's overtime, it's materials, and then the trucks we're using them up more than a year's worth.
This has been a very, very challenging year. Our operational portion, maintenance on the trucks,
Yeah.
had a lot of
The more you use them,
breakdowns. I have people working right now trying to get one ready just so we have another truck.
How much snow are we getting Monday, John?
6+, 6 to 8 inches is what they're calling for. Could be more, could be less. No one knows.
This is all
So-
2%. Right?
But we're
we
trying to
haven't
manage it with what I
salaries.
We
have.
haven't gotten
Yeah,
there.
Well, I
which we
think-
haven't gotten to.
We'll talk about that next.
Judy, just one real quick question, just so I know what I'm looking at. On K and J, on the second page, is that an updated calculation?
That's the reserve for uncollected taxes worksheet.
Right,
That tells you that's how I have to calculate out what the reserve will be.
and that's
It's-
incorporating the numbers from the
Right, on
fund.
that page, yes.
So when, in the bottom here, when you have the total tax rate,
Right,
that's the tax rate that's been
the municipal tax rate, yes,
municipal tax rate that's been calculated
from that,
using K
Right.
or J.
right.
Alright, cause it's virtually, looks like, I'm going back to last week's sheet.
Right.
It looks like there's virtually no change in the tax rate. Even
That-
though we're incorporating in these 2%.
Because I cut some,
Right.
monies from the operating. Got
So
You're
if
talking
we.
tax rate now, Bernie? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, that, to get to the line here, which is the amount to be raised by taxation in municipal budget.
Okay.
And there's two sheets, there's one for J and there's one for K.
Mhm.
And then I'm looking at the K, it's $7,212,107.
Okay.
Mhm.
Then right next to it, you have total tax rate. So that's the tax rate that we'd have to apply to get $7,212,000, based on our current assessment.
Yes.
The most recent assessment. Then I'm looking at what you gave us last week, and where you had no tax rate change was 0.3236. This is 0.3226.
So it's even less.
It's even less.
So it's less than where we were last year.
Now, that's given if we adopt K in its entirety,
Mhm.
just the way it is, along with everything
And again,
here.
that's anticipating the school and the county both at
Right,
2%.
right. So if we took the mayor's suggestion and we take the last three items and we fold that, take that out of there and fold it into either a surplus or whatever, they use it for something else, and we're now at somewhere between 2 and 3%, then all this changes.
That
right here a
changes,
little
it's gonna
bit.
probably make it back to the 3236 again.
Okay.
Right, well, a tax point is, I think, Judy, wasn't it about $440,000 for tax point? If all of these cuts in total are about,
No, 230,000,
was it 230?
230.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, so
So-
then all of these cuts here came out to what, 219?
About 220, yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So it's almost a
Yeah,
tax
so
point.
Steve's proposal about the last three items is gonna have a pretty minimal effect on the overall tax rate and the amount to be raised by taxes in the bigger picture scheme, right?
Little, should add 70,000-80,000 to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but in the final analysis, that's not gonna be a huge.
It's not a full tax point is $230,000.
Okay, so you're talking, 1/3, 30 point, whatever the decimal is, but that's
Right.
okay. They'll probably put that up to 0.3256.
Only for 5 seconds, you're back to tax rates?
All right, let's on the go forward here, because if we do have the opportunity for a
Oh, it's
meeting
good,
Monday
though.
night,
It's looking
if the
good.
snow is somehow allows us to meet Monday night, Judy, do you
I
want to
can-
incorporate J.2 or J.5 or whatever we're going to call it?
J and a
in
half?
there? J.5.
No, it's like-
ZZ.
It's like a software update,
Yeah.
2.0.
Can you do that for
Yeah.
Monday, and then we can?
Absolutely.
What are we doing?
I don't know.
Give me some further
summarize?
details here. Give me a
Please
summary
summarize.
of what I'm doing.
Well, Steve's high.
I'm gonna say that my summary is, those last three items,
That's on the appropriations, right?
yes, but that was, for me, it was based on,
Oh, it is.
J. I
On the-
know Larry has some questions about K. Do you have a second proposal on K?
Yeah, I would, the 200 that we're allocating for 2014, I would reduce that to something in the area of somewhere between 70 and 130.
This is on
Which we
K.
haven't, that would be 100.
You're on
Mhm.
J or K?
Okay.
Okay. So I would,
Larry's got a new K proposal, I've got a new J proposal. How about that? How about that?
You're killing
You wanna
me.
say that?
Well, the only thing with that is, once again, now getting back to Debbie's point, when you start doing that, which I'm fine with, the number at the bottom is not gonna be as smooth then again, right? We're gonna take that number down on the bottom here, and it's not
We're
gonna
gonna
be as smooth.
exchange that in exchange to
It's
make
gonna
sure
be-
we have
unless
the
it's gonna
money
go
in the
somewhere
bank.
else here. If it goes somewhere else, then you're gonna keep these numbers at the bottom consistent. If not, we're gonna have that
I thought we were
deviation.
gonna put it in.
now, an option would be to take the money out of that capital budget, not
16.
fund the full 200, come up with some other number between 70 and 130 as he's suggesting, and that $70,000 plus savings, I can put that in John's budget, if you want. And
Instead
it-
of doing what Steve
Right.
said, and this,
or,
Yes.
or
It
50.
doesn't even matter, because that's
So we
not-
reduce the
that's-
So
hike
you're
and bike.
reducing your
That's
capital
the number that
improvement
matters.
appropriation and increasing
And
your
throwing it
snow.
into operations, and the total on the our total remains the same.
Your total remains
I'm
the same.
taking it from
Right.
capital and throw it into
So
operating.
if you
But you're
take it.
spiking
But
your
this number
capital budget.
changes.
But, right,
But that number changes.
yes.
Yes.
Which I'm fine with, but once again, going
Yeah.
back to the discussion we had before, is the goal to keep,
Right.
to
No,
to smooth it out.
know.
Can I
Right.
just ask
We're,
Larry?
the thing you're weighing against is smoothing out the capital budget
Right.
or,
You just-
protecting, or
Protecting
protecting
surplus.
fund balance.
I'd rather
or-
protect the fund balance.
or,
than,
you know, or-
smooth
or
out the
s-
capital.
Or have as little loss of fund balance as
Yes,
possible.
any
I-
surplus in capital stays
I
in
don't,
capital.
you know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell everybody that it protects the fund balance. It's how much could we lose out of the fund balance?
Given that choice, rather
Yeah.
than having a smooth capital budget projected over 5 years or protecting the fund balance, I'd rather, or surplus, I'd rather do the surplus.
By the way, one of the ways you
Right.
can smooth that out is by taking the paving plan for the Highland Bank and spreading that over,
Yes, you
16,
could.
17.
Right, you could.
Because at that point, it'll be a nice gravel path or stone path, and it just may be as, you know, John wants to implement it.
Serviceable.
Wait,
Given,
can I
given
ask-
that, given that choice, smoothing out the
There's always
capital
the
plan
option, rather than to
or
Robertson
funding
Road,
the
if the numbers
surplus, which,
come out.
Right.
which
I mean,
makes you
well,
more comfortable when you put your head on the pillow.
I'd like to see you do both.
Well, no, that's not a choice.
That's her job.
These are the tough decisions that we're elected to make.
Larry, with your
I don't get to
plan,
vote.
No,
which
but
I
I'm
like
just
to call
wondering
K
from-
paren J.
Both are
for
very
Jacobs.
important.
I keep professional opinion.
Right, Deb?
Or you
Both
call
are
it
very important.
L Jacobs, and just
K
call it
Probably
paren
fund
LJ.
Okay,
Um,
all right, did we
Okay,
hear
so
that?
we reduce.
What? Oh, wait.
Fund
Sorry.
balance.
You're on the record.
What happened? Fund balance?
I didn't mean to put you on the
Pinned it
spot, but
down.
I'm just.
No, but we look
Okay.
to our professionals to help us.
Definitely. Okay, so Larry's plan, we reduce the hike and bike appropriation, capital appropriation this year from 200,000 to what, 130?
Somewhere in that 100.
And then when
range.
where do we make it up?
Then what
Where
you're
does
gonna
that-
do
We're not
is
making it up.
We're not making it up.
in this,
We're gonna do
instead
less.
of doing this in 1 year, maybe
Oh, we
we
just do
cut it in
less.
half and we do
Double
half
up,
here and
right.
half here,
So
just
we
to
just
make
do
it more
So
palatable.
this number is gonna be
Right,
lower.
okay, I knew that. I
Right.
just
Okay.
wondered what we were, if we were reducing it, when were we gonna do, when were we gonna put back
No,
what
but
we were
let me
reducing?
understand this, the 416 for the point-to-point stone path, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a 253 grant. So you subtract that from the 416, that's what you need to fund,
163.
correct? So that's what we need to fund between this year
And next year.
and next year.
170, so
And that's why
if-
you're just gonna break them, that you're just,
Yeah.
Okay, can I ask
And
you?
it just, to me, it sounded like 200 was too much,
I got it.
even with whatever extras would be associated with it.
Or you could fund it all, the 200 and, or 175 if that's the
Right.
case this year and not have to worry about it next year. if the
that's
capital,
175, I like that number.
because then
It
you're,
doesn't
then
reduce
you're
it that
guaranteed
much.
that you're funding what you're looking at doing next year. And then, you know, if Robertson comes in at a wacky number, then we need to
Yeah, we
adjust that.
can shift that around,
Right.
and if there was, you know, a great cost savings by combining Robertson with the final paving for
Right.
Hike and Bike.
Now,
Or-
the money for the ordinance that we're gonna set this aside, and correct me if I'm
That-
wrong,
that's
Deb, we could
possible.
word it
I
in
think-
such a way that money could be used either or.
For,
For Robertson, Hike and Bike,
you'd have to be a very broad
we have
description.
a very broad capital ordinance that would allow that money to be used for either project.
Does that make sense to you?
Understood.
Mhm.
And by the way, I mean, you know, we also probably paving versus.
I'm suggesting
And by the way, that
175
would allow us to smooth out
is in
that
the
number.
390.
Yeah.
You kind of lost me a little bit here. For 2014, Larry, what are you proposing the final total from the 390 to change to?
He didn't give us a number.
Okay.
Well,
You're
looking
talking
at
about
the-
cutting
the-
100 out?
The
Is that what you're
200,
doing?
I'm thinking around
You're just
100.
breaking it up. You're breaking it up.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're talking about reducing that 390 down to about 290, give or take? Okay, and then we're proposing taking that 100 and giving it to John, is that what we're saying?
I thought.
No,
that's
because
maybe-
we still out of this 70 out of that, we still need to go back into appropriations.
Judy, I didn't catch this
And I
before,
know
but on,
part of that goes to John.
on K, you have that 123, you took that
Scratch that.
123 from,
I guess what I'm asking,
dump
are
truck?
we talking
Yeah.
about
The dump
using
truck
the
ordinance.
100 from the
Right.
capital improvement appropriation,
There.
giving it to John, but then I thought we just said we were gonna take like 70 out of this piece and giving it to John, so I'm
Right.
just, I'm
So-
getting confused.
So if,
That's a double payment.
Yeah.
There's,
On
it's
the
not
dump
a
truck.
Yeah.
so we're taking the 123 that was already.
we've already,
Right.
it's already,
It's in
But,
ordinance.
and still pumping in another 75
Correct.
for
Right,
correct,
new.
other.
correct.
Is that 75, that's a real and practical number?
It's a reasonable number for, you know, year to year to year.
Okay.
I mean, a truck that I'm looking at right now it's a great price on a truck. I didn't think I was ever gonna be able to touch a truck for that pound of a price, but, that number's very good right now. So that 75 gets me equipment, cause I need to, or we just try to set aside enough money, you know, going forward. But I like to see more, yeah, everybody would like to see more, but I'm a reasonable person.
But Deb, to your point, the J plan
Okay,
is
I was
going
looking
back
at
and looking at 70 in the appropriation cuts.
I was
70,
actually looking
75.
at the K, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Well, but that's how the 70 in appropriation cuts
Mm-hmm,
goes back into appropriation into John's.
That's the
Okay.
J,
Yeah,
That's the
Steve's
J
plan.
plan.
J
The
plan.
K plan is,
okay,
the original K plan took all of Judy's cuts, and we were still 70 in arrears.
mm-hmm,
So we have to get some of that out of capital
I follow you.
to make up for that.
Right.
Okay.
And that's Larry's.
Right, I mean, look, whatever that
And
reduction
there
is,
may
I
be
just
a
think that
hybrid
200,
between the two.
I think 200 is more than we need to fund in 2014 for that 2015.
And it may be.
Right.
I mean, 200 and we need to come out of pocket 160
Yeah.
something for the,
Right.
for the balance of the project. I think that's, we can play those numbers.
Now, I know the police department aren't here, but I do advocate that, you know, they did ask for some equipment, some additional equipment that they're trying to put off, but eventually that's gonna happen, so
Well,
whether or not.
Their number hasn't changed on it.
No, I know that, but I'm saying is if you wanna cut some numbers, if you're gonna cut a number, obviously that's 70, you wanna get that hike and bike number down, that's $70,000 you're talking about. You might wanna fund that, and maybe that'll relieve some of the pressure next year also.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a shell game, trying
Yes.
to make numbers work to where everybody's comfortable with it, so.
We're also trying to see if we do get that grant from, the grant money from Cablevision for
Right.
communication,
Yeah.
that some of what the police department is asking for are communication-based items.
And
That
we
maybe
could
we
buy
could
that.
fund some of that.
All right. So we have a go forward with a couple options for yet another discussion on the capital.
Okay, so you didn't give me a real number on K. From the 200, we're going to 100?
So let's look at 14 and 15. So
On K.
we need to fund,
You need a clean sheet over there.
He's got red marks everywhere.
416 minus the 253, or 250, whatever that was, 163, all right? We already have the engineering expenses.
Paid for.
Paid for,
Up in here, yeah.
right, so,
Question on that is, do we have in that 416, does that include those permits that he's talking about? The $50,000 worth of permits is the 416?
Well, haven't we already approved that?
No.
So-
No,
Oh,
not
that's
for the
above and
permits.
beyond.
that was the engineering.
You're right.
Wait a minute.
Disregard.
Wait a
That
minute.
was.
Just
Good question.
Let's be clear, let's make sure. On his original cost estimate of 245, he had 10, 30, and another 10 for the permits, plus 50 for engineering. His total price for the construction engineering permits was 745,016, or 019.
Yeah, the permits are $50,000. And in his 416 estimate, the permits are not listed.
Right. So we're short.
And the,
Municipalities get a break on,
no,
please.
we gotta
You know?
still pay the DEP wetlands permit, the FHA permit, and the DOT access permit for $50,000, those three things. And that money is not in Paul's estimate, so we need to still come up with that money. Good call, good catch, John. I thought it was in here. Excavation, no, there's no
Sorry.
$50,000, pedestrian bridge, 25, restoration.
So that 200 is now looking better. Now he needs it. He's going to need that. We currently have we
That's
have
this year.
we have a capital fund balance, so we can take the money out of.
Right, but I
Which
still
is-
have to do an ordinance for it.
Correct.
So,
But
yeah, I think there's 50,000 that's not listed in his numbers. It's on the
It's
original
not in-
proposal. He has it there. You see in the bottom section, the 3 permits that total 50,000, 10, 30, and 10.
595 and
But then this
645.
416 number, he says this is construction costs only. It does not, I don't see any permits
So
on there.
416. So so we're still back, 163 for the construction. And
50,000 for the permits.
that's, okay, so then you're at 210, but still spreading that 210 over, essentially a levy of 210 over 2 years as opposed to putting 200 into.
Yeah, but I gotta add
2014.
another 50 in there.
Right, but I'm saying, so instead of, making it, 110 and 100 or something along those lines, that the total appropriations, not appropriations, but the total levy to fund the hike and bike between those 2 years can be evened out.
And
Yes.
The assumption on the capital improvement fund anyway is to keep how much
Well, we've,
Going forward.
250 is what Judy and I have been trying to keep in there for an emergency.
And we're at 270, using 200,000 in K from the fund balance surplus, still leaves us 275.
So you need 25 currently to get us to that 250 mark for the permits then. You still need 50 for permits, 250 plus the 25.
The 416 in 2015, doesn't include the 50,000 for the permit, so I need to probably put another 50,000 in 2014, or 25 and 25.
And here's a goal I'll give you, and I don't know if it's feasible or not. That's 75. Again, we talked about the turtle tunnels. It's just a number. I'm hoping it comes in a lot less than that, and you can have it back. So.
Now, what did, at the last, when Paul was here, last meeting, and he talked about bringing the number in lower than we had originally anticipated in one of the first capital go-arounds. That was just addressing his cost that
That was on the 25 to.
He was
15.
saying 50 for the hike and bike, 25 for the turtle tunnels. Then he said, to be honest with you, the turtle tunnels, if we're going to do it the way we're doing it with John, it's going to be more like 15.
Right.
We already did an ordinance for 25 and
okay,
50.
Okay.
But it's a broad ordinance where the two numbers are linked together, and so that if one project ended up being 55 and one project was 20, the two are interchangeable.
Mhm.
And I'm just anticipating, knowing how these projects go, that the 50 may become 55. We funded 50 and we're going to keep drawing off of that. You can't tell me you're not going to spend anything in 2015 and 2016. There's
Right.
going to be something. And
There's
so
always
now we
something.
have that money, that extra 10 is going to offset that.
Is-
If we don't use it, we cancel it back
Is
into the
that
surplus.
ordinance that we just did, is it specific in its only design? It doesn't cover the permits? Couldn't he just pay for the permit
That's a
fees
capital.
out of-
That's a capital
So he
cost.
could pay for the permit fees that the ordinance we currently have right now,
Yeah.
and then we may need to modify his engineering moving forward in 2000.
pay him some more in
15
15 to finish his
Right.
engineering.
for the
job.
engineering.
All right, because in that ordinance, it says, whereas phase one will encompass all work associated with the complete construction of a fully functional path except for paving, and phase two includes preparation, paving the path, and whereas the township, okay. So, yes, I mean, it sounds like it's all inclusive. Those costs, are covered in the ordinance.
So
Where I read it.
it may be a moot point at this point, but I'm just making sure that it's covered somewhere. we
So in
may-
other words, if you see that line there, it says 50,000 in K for Paul's cost for the hike and bike. If we incorporate the permits into that 50,000, then we need, in 2015, we should probably add in
There may be another engineering design.
another 50,000 to account
But
for
we will
the,
also, this time next year, have a better idea what that will be.
we have to
So
add
that's
another
another
50
thing
in
that might
somewhere.
help us somewhere.
That'll offset for the permits.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Okay, but that's good, we've discussed that.
all right.
So we still can cut the number that you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Making it,
Give us a number.
Your plan.
125.
one,
We're gonna come back to
125?
you. 100?
125, John said.
125.
Okay.
That takes your 75 right out of the thing, and it's it's everything we talked about.
Okay.
All
Good
right,
idea, Larry.
Okay.
there's another thing that we have to talk about that's on our lists, and it's about employee costs. It's all been kind of worked into the appropriations, as was kind of intimated earlier. Judy's already kind of put a 2% raise in for all the non-union employees, non-elected non-union employees. As she's kind of said before, that entire 2% raise comes out to about $40,000 in the big scheme of things. $40,000 is still tax money. It's not insignificant, but as you parse it down to percentages, we may be talking 40, we may be talking 5,000, give or take here or there. As Judy showed you before, with a spreadsheet, she can show you the impact of the employees coming into the healthcare system.
The shrinking paycheck sheet is in your file.
Mm-hmm.
And the police have the same issue. Our police contract is not signed yet, and it's open session, so I'm gonna not really, I don't wanna touch too far on where we are with the PBA contract, other than to say it has not been settled. And it may go to some kind of mediation or arbitration. But, having said that, we have to determine as we go forward what compensation we want to give the non-unions, with the idea probably that 2%, to use Bernie's phrase, is the safe harbor. I don't think we're constrained by that, but it is. And let's also remember that the idea behind the state law that brings the healthcare contributions from all municipal employees is designed to take the pressure off the taxpayer. I'm sure from an employee standpoint of view, it's not a welcome thing. It's not something, it's taking money from their take-home pay. Those of us that have to do that in our private lives have to deal with that. But we need to determine what is a prudent course of action on this. And we have in the past not done raises and done bonuses. Those are of course not pensionable. And of course the employees' compensation changes over the years has been significantly less than what our union employees have gotten through the collective bargaining process. And so that also needs to be out on the table. I don't want to get into numbers, and I don't want to get into, but I think those are some of the pressures. And we have good people that work for us, and they work very hard, and we make decisions and they make it go. But by the same token, we've got taxpayers out there, and they're going to look at their taxes going up, and they're going to look at what are all the things that increased as far as what we spent money on over the course of the year. So I think it's very real for the employees. It's also going to be real for the taxpayers, but maybe not as concrete for the taxpayers because it's hard to see a dollar for dollar issue. But I think we have to determine what is our go forward on this, and I will go around the room and get a sense for. Again, you're looking at about a quarter point is about $4,500.
Well, Mayor, I was around when, when we were doing the bonuses in lieu of salary.
Let's quantify. It's not a bonus, it was a stipend.
Stipend.
Let's
okay.
make sure that people understand, since we're being
Right?
Okay.
broadcasted.
Okay.
Well,
It's not a bonus,
mm-hmm.
it's a stipend.
Okay, it was called that, but probably that's not probably the best nomenclature.
It was done at the end of the year when it was determined how we did with the budget, and if the budget went well, if the control over the budget, which the employees are making this stuff happen, and if at the end of the year we were not in a great deficit situation and there was some money, we looked like our fund balance was okay. Although remember, in all those years, we still robbed a little bit from fund balance. But we did better than we had hoped to do. Things weren't as bad as we had been concerned about. That we wanted to try to, at the end of the year, say, yes, we will provide a stipend for the year.
Was that a
The-
line item in
No.
the beginning of the year?
No.
No, we took it from the
So
reserves.
is
It was
took it from
only
reserves,
done
right.
as we got towards past the November.
It was not raised in the
transfers.
So
budget,
if
it was
reserves-
left over in the
if
budget.
reserves accumulated,
Right.
there was a portion of those reserves that went out as the money,
Yes.
whatever it's called.
Whether it was called a
Bonus.
stipend or a Christmas bonus, whatever you wanted to call it, it was money set aside.
But it was
Let me-
not
let me-
raised by the
Let me
tax.
go back to try to put it in some context. And the years that we did it, economically speaking, okay, we were clearly in the throes of a recession. We were still feeling the impact of the the real estate market meltdown. Foreclosures were high. Virtually nobody in the public sector or the private sector, for that matter, were getting raises, if you remember. Inflation was low. We were in a deflationary environment. So today is very different economically than what we were in the days that you were getting the stipend.
And we were in negotiations with the PBA contract at the time.
Well, I don't even want to. Okay, but I don't want to make one is part of another.
No, I will. We were not given raises because of the political pressures were put on the PBA contract negotiations. And I'll just leave it at that.
Well, there was the overall economic environment too, I think, which was probably a more overriding concern. A lot has changed in that period of time. Okay, you can argue that the overall economy is in an expansion mode, although it's pretty tepid, but it is in expansion mode. Municipal employees are seeing raises again. The private sector is seeing, albeit very modest, but they are seeing some expansion and some job growth. Don't forget, there was municipalities that were laying off people. Private sector was laying off. Unemployment was higher. A lot of things were different. So I don't think it's reckless or it's necessarily being over generous or not being prudent to see a municipal employee get a raise in 2014. Especially in the fact that in our particular municipality, we have a lot of cross-trained employees, a lot of employees wear multiple hats, do multiple jobs. We, other than for some temporary people that we have to hire now and then, and some seasonal people, we really haven't expanded our employee base significantly over the years. I think we do a lot with very little, especially if you look at some of the surrounding towns and we're talking about, you know, videotaping the meetings, and then you went over to Burns Township and you see two full-time IT people. You know, I mean, is that necessary? Is that a
Well,
luxury?
they're 3 times the size. we
Right,
are.
but I'm just saying, I mean, we do a lot with a lot less personnel, and certainly we don't have a lot of titles and people, you know, wear multiple hats. I mean, right here, we have an administrator clerk, we have a part-time CFO. Years ago, we didn't have that. We had separate people doing it. So we've been shrinking the employee base. So I guess to get to my point, and the years that the non-union employees did not get raises, okay, for whatever the reason was, there's a little catch-up here, I think, that's appropriate. That's me.
I agree. I think Judy's suggestion is reasonable, and it should be in the form of a raise, so that it is pensionable to play a little bit of catch up. And our employees really are one of our biggest assets that we have. We don't really produce anything other than services, and you know, they really do a great job. I agree with what Bernie said.
Carol?
Well, considering the rate of inflation is 1.9, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should keep up with that, considering how hard everybody works and the great job that they do. I'm comfortable with a 2% raise to keep up with inflation.
Larry? My first comment is on the take-home pay issue, and to further Steve's comment is, this is everywhere. Everywhere. And we run through this analysis at my law firm, and I can tell you that everyone, their salary, their take-home dropped because of healthcare expenses. So I appreciate what you put together, and you showed the take-home pay coming down, but that is, it's endemic. It's built in the way that all employment situations are being run today, which is there's more health care that is being put on the individual employee. And I guess that probably extends to just about everyone here who does not work for the township.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So while I'm sensitive to it, it's everywhere. And that's why I look at that sheet and go, yeah, I've seen the same numbers and much more dramatic numbers in my office and for my staff. And for me. Having said that, I just want to put that on the table.
That's
and
fine.
Put that on there and put that
I
on there.
understand, since we are a non-union group and we don't have a union and we don't have representatives, ultimately, John and I are the representatives in Debbie.
Mhm.
So,
No, and I appreciate you're speaking up for your staff.
so, you know, if I don't ask.
Okay, but that's, I just want to, this is
I think
me
we
speaking individually.
We all appreciate your point of view too. I mean, we all know.
Yes.
We all know that.
Right.
We understand.
So, you've articulated it and expressed it there, some paper. As Steve said, we put together numbers. And sometimes we really don't even put together numbers. You guys put together the numbers and we get to critique it and comment and do everything else. But in the end, the implementation of the budget and coming in is based upon the staff administering whatever it is that we approve. And you guys have done a very good job. And the fact that this winter, the DPW guys have done tremendous job of maintaining our roads in good conditions and safe conditions. And one of the things that we look at is, you know, as any taxpayer is, you know, things that Steve and I think we all talk about is, what's the role of government, right? What's the role of local government? Police, make sure your guys are staffed, and keep the roads in good shape, right?
Which keeps everybody safe. Which
Keeps
then
everyone safe.
cuts down on our liability as well.
So,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
they've done a good job, and, you know, I believe that the municipal employees should be appropriately compensated for the work. I don't have a number.
Mhm.
I don't have a number, whether it's the CPI at 1.9, or something else. I'm not there at a number, but I do support, a raise. And not a bonus or stipend, that we anticipate it and we budget for it and we levy, funds for it appropriately.
And I will also say, just to repeat, that the shrinking take-home pay, municipal government can't chase that, because that is the reason for the new laws in place, because it is supposed to provide tax relief. I will agree with Carolyn's comments, though. We have a CPI of 1.9%. That's just keeping up with CPI, and I think 2% is certainly in order. So I think the numbers that Judy brought forward, I think, are appropriate. I don't think we could say anything else. So, you know, we could make an argument on performance and the value of our employees that we should go higher, but I certainly think in this environment, I can't argue with the 2%. All right, any other, we have a consensus?
She's at 1.9.
Come on,
Two.
Carlin, two.
No, I said 2.
Oh,
She
okay,
said,
okay,
she said
okay.
CPI was
I said
1.9,
two.
so we can agree to 2. And no, I don't have anything,
$3,000.
I have no quarrel with anything she said there. So I think that's good, because I think that allows Judy to get her numbers a little more solid in here, so,
Thank you.
no.
Thank you.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
important.
Wish it could be more.
So,
Okay.
our go forward here is, if we have a Monday meeting, we can finally finish up.
Well,
What
we
are
say
doing?
finish, I mean,
Yeah.
but did we run, actually this was
we
John's
do?
point earlier, have we,
For the appropriation?
yeah, on the appropriations and operating.
I mean, if you're satisfied with the way that Judy's put them together, that's fine. I just,
You wanna go through K, just saying through it, is that what you?
No, it's really, it's not the K, it's not the capital budget, it's really, it's
Through the
yeah, I mean, whatever, I mean, these
Is
sheets
there
are all
any,
the
is
same.
there anything on this that, dramatically changed in anything,
No,
Judy?
the operating budget numbers between J and K are exactly the same. The cuts have already been taken, the cuts suggested in the summary sheet
Have been backed out of
have
this?
already been taken out. The only number that changed in the two sheets, the two summaries, is the capital number. Now, there's been some revision to that, so I'll have to run the numbers again, and it'll come in slightly different. You know, every time you change a number, it changes the whole calculation, so.
The,
If there's something that's jumping out at you that you wanna ask us about, between me, John, and Debbie, I'm sure we can answer it.
And when we went through it originally, there are some things that look like big numbers. In some cases, like fire inspector, things have been moved from one department to the
that
other.
needs
So you may
explanation.
see a significant rise here and a significant drop there.
A lot of times it's
I think when we looked at that, it was just moving departments. I don't recall seeing anything
And-
that we didn't ask questions about that was.
Yeah.
And there's some areas here where we really can't anticipate any savings, because we really don't know what
Well,
it's
for
gonna look
example,
like.
the municipal services contract
Right.
has yet to be finalized. The number that's in there is still an estimate. I think we're okay.
Yeah, well,
but-
municipal court's another one, it's no secret
And
that
that- and I
we're
can't-
having discussions, but.
Absolutely,
but
and
we
we're gonna
do-
have a savings there. What's that savings gonna be?
Yeah, we
I
can't
don't
plug
know.
that in, you
So
know.
I'm leaving it the same.
Right,
Are we
of
gonna
course.
probably see a savings? Absolutely.
Right.
I don't know what I don't know what the
No,
number
we
will
don't,
be.
obviously.
And that impacts, you know, the court salaries, that impacts the municipal prosecutor's number, the public defender's
Right,
number, some of the police, salary number for the special police, I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, but they will be less, I just don't know how much, so I left them the same, to be safe.
Right.
I didn't see anything in there.
At the
when I
very
went
least,
through
they'll
it. That
stay the
was-
same.
Yeah, we went
Um,
through it.
Another, the debt service is what it is,
Really,
know.
all these things relate back to the capital discussion that we had too.
So let's go around the room on that, just to be very clear about it, because we have thrown a lot of different numbers around. And I just wanna make sure that it's not just Larry and me making discussion on this. Are we in agreement that we wanna see revised sheets on this? I just wanna make sure that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, I wanna make sure, I
Yeah.
think we do.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that,
Right.
we had a couple tweaks.
right,
And now that we got a lot of the business out of the way, Monday night, if we do have our meeting and the snow isn't a problem, I can have these revisions in place and we can hopefully
hopefully-
finalize things and just, you know, have that discussion. If we don't have a meeting Monday, what do you propose?
well, then we have another one on, can we?
We can move I would,
You wanna get this done early, is there,
to be
is there
very
another
honest
night
with you,
next week
I
that we
would,
could?
I really don't wanna
notice?
put it off to March 10th, that's
No.
almost like too late.
So you don't think we're gonna meet March 10th?
Plus, it'd be nice to not have a.
I just wanna know,
meeting
cause I have a conflict March 10th, but this would come to.
Well,
Well,
then
I would
let's-
like to
This
get
is
it
like
done
our
before
sixth.
March 10th.
Yes.
We've really been working hard on it, so then it's
I can tell you right now, I'll just go through mine. We're looking at Wednesday night, the 5th, I'm available.
I am not. Well, I can be. I take that back. I can be available. I am available Tuesday the 4th.
Okay, for me to notice another
I'm not
special
available
meeting,
the 4th.
I'm available all week.
I
Thursday
can,
is a school board meeting.
Yeah.
it's
It's
not
chair
gonna
budget that night.
Budget intro.
get in the paper.
What's the earliest, the 5th?
Does it help you if we moved it to Saturday the 8th instead of the 10th? Does that buy any time or no?
I don't know if I could do the.
There's no night this week we can meet? What about
That's what
Tuesday?
I would like, that's what I would like to do, either one day meeting or one night meeting.
Tuesday night,
this-
anybody busy Tuesday night?
Well, I don't think she can notice it.
I
for
can't
Oh, I
notice
see,
it
I'm
that quickly,
sorry.
but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
How about the 5th?
I can do the 5th.
I can do the 5th.
I think I
Yeah.
can too. I remember something on the 5th, but it's not in my book.
So too bad.
5th, I can do the 5th.
Is
That's
that
a
assuming,
Wednesday.
is that assuming that
Ash
Monday you're not
Wednesday.
gonna be here?
That-
No, our goal is
that-
to try to meet Monday, and I will
If we
tell you, I own a
cancel-
plow, so I will pick up anybody that I can,
I'll walk
if you
down
want.
to 202
Yeah.
if I have to, and someone can pick me up.
Yeah,
I'll pick you up in my plow if you need to.
If we have a meeting Monday night, we're
It might
good.
just be worth it just for the
If we
phone call.
don't, I'll notice a meeting for Wednesday, Monday morning, I'll send it to the paper, I can do it just an email, and in fact, I can do it now,
Will you know by Monday?
and, I just have to send it.
Oh, okay.
I have to legally send it to the paper.
Well, we need another budget meeting, right? We
Yes.
need another
Well-
one.
Well, you have a township committee
We have
meeting. that you're-
TC
We
meeting
can do,
Monday.
if the weather
You can always
permits
cancel the
Monday.
meeting.
No, so I'm gonna
Oh, yeah.
notice it for
Yeah.
Wednesday, and if we need it, we have it. If we don't need it, we don't, we cancel it. If
Okay.
we have it Monday, we do it Monday, we're done.
I'm putting it down for 7 then on Wednesday,
Alright.
the budget meeting.
So I'll notice it now, and if we need it, we've got it. If we don't need it, cause we have it Monday, we're good. And that would be delightful. And that way I can revise everything, get it, Debbie and I can finalize it, get it to the auditor by the end of next week.
Alright,
Which would be great.
alright.
It's just we need like a full week for us to put it all together, they
I-
send it back to us to
no,
review
I-
it, we have to make sure everything's correct.
God bless you,
For
Judy.
introduction
Yep.
on the 17th,
Alright.
For St. Patty's Day.
yeah.
Public comments. We have one member of the public who's seen all this. Do you have a comment? Please speak up so that you're heard.
Basil Scobertus, 19 Steeplechase Court. In lieu of the fact that we're talking about the hike and bike path, there might be maybe some delay in completing it and the expense involved. One thing I want to bring to your attention is Kleins Mill Road. Now, Kleins Mill Road is open to the public for bikers and pedestrians due to an easement that's been given. Otherwise, it's a private road not to be used by public vehicles like cars. Okay,
Right.
now, in its execution, my opinion is, having viewed the entrance to Kleins Mill Road both at River Road and at Burton Mills Road, that the signage that's there now discourages use. Right now, the owner of that property indicates that it's a private road, and the signage at both ends really is discouraging. The only exception is the metal gate, it's electronic gate, that's on Burnt Mills Road. There's a button you can press, and it says, bicycles and pedestrians press this button. That's
Right.
about it.
In fact, that got brought up when the gate was put in. I mean, that's how I get onto the hike and bike path from my house. I go up Burnt Mills and go down Klein's Mills. And I remember, because I remember sitting in the discussions as to when that easement took place, and I remember going, well, geez, why is this gate here, and how do people, the public, access it? And I think we asked the question, and the owner then put in the button and then put in the sign. But I understand your point as far as it isn't welcoming.
Now, I've actually had a situation where I actually got into trouble because of it, because I enter, because of where I live, from the River Road entrance. And right there, it says, as soon as you cross the bridge there, it says private road. Now, I went over with my daughter on her bikes, and I chose the path of least resistance. There was a road to the left that didn't say private road, so I went that way. Next thing I know, I'm being yelled at for trespassing. Me and my daughter. My daughter actually got quite scared, through this experience. And the person was yelling at me, saying, the signage says, you could use that, but not here. I said, well, it's not clear. So I got into an argument with the person saying, it's not clear. They're saying it was. But the bottom line is, I have photographs of both entrances and the signage. If you'd like me to share it with you, I can email it over. But I definitely think it needs to be made more public if this road's available, because it's a great circuitous route, around the whole hike and bike path from Bedminster, to at least complete it until the full finalized path is done. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Township Committee comments.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing, that's it, we did a great job tonight. Thank you, everyone.
I think we covered it all.
Happy March.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out on a Saturday morning. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
just that little weather information, first batch of